All right, welcome to live stream number 39. I'm Joshua Kemble. I'm a freelance illustrator, graphic designer, have been a professional artist for over 15 years. And I'm also an art director working on my 7th year, but I'm in the middle of my like my 6th year of doing that. And when I'm not doing that, I am working on book 2 of my graphic novel. The first one, which came out in December, called Two Stories, Book 1. And you'll notice that says Book 1. And you can get the first book. I'm going to be working on the second during this stream, but you can get the first through most bookstores. I would recommend getting it on Amazon because it's like at an unusually inexpensive cost right now. I think it's like on sale for like $11 or something, and it's usually a $20 book, so it's a pretty good deal. But anyhow, you can get this book, which is a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. And you can pick that up at Amazon. So it's hand lettered, hand inked, and a pretty like considered personal graphic novel that I've heard really good feedback from the people who bought it. So I recommend, if you want to support these streams, or if you're curious like about my art and stuff like that, pick up a copy of that book. And now we're going to get into it. So generally on these streams, what I do is basically work on, right now I'm working on thumbnails and tight pencil roughs for book 2. And so that means it's basically working out the composition and the layout from the script. And I'm pretty far along in the script. There's, I think, only really 2 pages left to go, full pages, to finish chapter 10. And that's pretty cool because this is like step 1 in the process of making the comic. So once I'm done with this, I'll technically be like maybe a fourth to a third of the way through the entire book, which is pretty encouraging. So anyhow, so my goal is to basically lay out the next page, and assuming that it's like a Sunday night and people have work in the morning. And then not only that, there was daylight savings time, so everybody's thrown off their schedules. So I'm guessing like not a lot of people are going to show up. But in the meantime, I'll just press forward and kind of start laying out the next page. So let's do it. The one thing I'm going to do that I always do, that you're going to see me do on all of these, is I usually break I make a copy of the previous page, and then I break the previous panels into sections so that I can quickly reference them. Let's see. And this is an interesting part of the book because everything prior to this is sequentially kind of taken place in the exact time it's being written about. But this last part is going through a lot of these kind of sequences that are somewhat like, let's see here, sorry. Sequences that are somewhat more like infographics, and so it's pretty exciting. But we'll get going and move forward. My hope is to knock this out as quickly as possible, like maybe within an hour or two. But we'll see, because it does take time to do these things. All right. So the next section, the last phrase in the book was this rang true to many conversations I'd had with family. Okay. So I'm going to do kind of a sequel panel to that up here. This is going to be the next page. So let's get into it and knock out these thumbnails. I'm also working on the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, and I think today is, let's see, the 14th plus 29 plus 31. So 29 plus 31. My brain is bad, but I think that's 29 plus 31 is 60. and then 70. So I think I'm on day 74 of the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, which is pretty cool too. It's my third time doing the challenge. And that's the challenge where you're supposed to spend 30 minutes a day minimum working towards your own personal comic projects. And anybody who's been following these streams knows I usually spend a couple hours minimum. So, okay, so let's block out the type here. And this is going to say, as if I was claiming something that I had to be in opposition to their belief. And then we're joined by Adam in the chats. How's it going, Adam? How you doing, man? I liked those panels that you redid. Frank's here as well. How's it going, Frank? If either of you guys want to hop on in the chats, feel free. Adam said, I find the atheism and Christian stuff pretty interesting. Yeah, it's a good conversation. It's definitely like a theme of the book too. So it kind of fits thematically with what I'm doing. Frank said, "What up, Night Gang?" But yeah, if either of you guys want to join in and be on the live thing, let me know. If not, and you want to hang in the chats, that's fine too. I know sometimes when I'm working on art, I'd rather do it. Frank was saying he'll hop on, but he can't stay for 4 hours. Yeah, I'm hoping not to have this go for like 4 hours. Let me see. Invite. Okay, I'll send you a link real quick, Frank. Let's see. All right. So if Frank hops on, we'll see. Yeah, so I'm going to be basically, I think what I'm going to do for this panel is kind of continue what I did on the last. And then we'll just kind of see where we go from there. Ooh, my goodness. All right. So we have, like, it's going to be kind of that, but I want to do like a continued discussion from the last one. My goodness, that's from yesterday. Let's see here. Okay. Hey, Frank, how's it going, man?
Hey, good. Just setting up my phone here. There we go.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting topic, like atheism versus Christianity. It's a weird thing because it's like on one hand I like getting into it, and on the other I totally don't, because I'm like, I don't really view, like, I don't know, I don't view it as like a topic where I can convince someone. Like I can tell them my own personal experience and stuff, but it's like I don't think I'm gonna like rationally. I don't know. It's a tough one. And I just like I don't mind having the conversation. I enjoy it. I actually like most of my friends are atheists, so it's like that works, But it's like yeah, it's just a weird topic to kind of broach because I know it's like I can speak to my experience and that's all I can speak to. It's like I can't really.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whenever it ends up being, I also think it's like it often ends up being a really misplaced conversation because people try to make it like a scientific one as opposed to like a philosophical one. Because to me, like that's where there's a little more of an argument, is like on a philosophical level. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever read Tortured by Christ? Tortured for Christ by Richard Rembrandt. It's a very famous book.
Hmm. I
He
have
was
not
a
read that one.
he was a reverend for back when around the Holocaust, but it was more with the Russians,
Oh, okay.
the communism. So he would often get arrested for preaching in that country. And but he said he started off. He used to be an atheist. Like he thought that God was like this. Well, like you were saying in one of your streams, where you thought God was this like punishing God.
Yeah, I definitely used to look at it that way for sure.
But he it helped because he wrote that book. It's a small book and you could
Yeah,
get it anywhere. But
that's cool. I'm gonna write that down, pick it up. That might be helpful for those discussions too.
yeah, but he was saying like even though he was an atheist, he will go to churches to try to find something.
Yeah,
It
that's
wasn't until he met like this other person that was more. I don't know. Like you have to read the book. Like he talks about briefly, but like just the way he
nice.
puts things. It's a really good book. I like it.
That's
I've read
awesome.
it a few times, and I've shed a tear when just reading stuff I've read before. Like, but it's good.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoy that kind of stuff. I'm gonna
I think
check
I
that
have
out
it.
too. I wrote it
I have it
down.
over here. I'll show it to you.
Um, yeah, it's funny. Actually, the part of the comic I'm working on is about some of the books, like a few of the books that changed my mind a little bit, And it's funny because it's like I think it's oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna check that out. That's a rough time to be a believer too. like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I for me like I'm writing about it actually in these next few pages, but it's like Francis Collins was like a big one where he wrote about semiotics, and that was pretty interesting. Where it's
Okay.
like a lot of people philosophically are like kind of reductionists, and so like a lot of people who just believe in like raw science
Yeah.
tend to believe in like the idea of like everything can kind of be reduced, and that's definitely huge in evolution too, where it's like reducible complexity. So like the idea that like everything that is complex can be reduced to something simple. And I like Collins kind of makes this argument of like it being really fascinating that like when you boil things down to like the very like DNA that we're all kind
Hmm.
of composed of, that you end up with semiotics, which is like language, which is really complicated. It's not
Yeah.
like language isn't a simple, semiotics is usually like a top level type of discipline. It's not usually like the type of thing you'd imagine to like see under a microscope. And so like he's the guy who like actually it's funny because I used to have to explain it, but I think people are pretty familiar with Collins now because of COVID and stuff. He's one of the guys. He helped develop the vaccine.
Okay.
But he's the guy who decoded the human genome, and like, yeah, I just thought that was a really compelling point. I know that's weird that would be a compelling point, but it was really compelling to me because at the time, yeah, he wrote this book called The Language of God that just sort of broke down some of the barriers of Christians and scientists, and like sort of the difference, like the thing that kind of causes a lot of contention. A lot of it's just like a misuse of language on both ends.
Yeah.
So it's like when a scientist is saying like theory, it it doesn't mean the same as like, hey, I've got like this theory I'm postulating, and yet like a lot of Christians will take it that way. So they'll be like, well, it's just a theory, I have theories, like, and they think it's like that kind of theory where it's like, hey, I've got a theory for my essay, or like Frank, you and I are talking and we have theories about comics,
Yeah.
but it's like, in science, like a theory is a totally different thing. Like a theory with a capital T is like gravity is a theory, so it's like theories are a little different in science, than just like postulation,
Yeah.
So he gets into that, and I think that's really cool, and it's a good book for like Christians and atheists to read, because it kind of explains just some of the weird divides that make those conversations like really tense and difficult for like all sides, But I just thought that point about semiotics was brilliant, where it's like that's a crazy kind of interesting point, where it's like if everything kind of boils down to something simple, and yet there's a language behind, like pretty much like everything we do, like that kind of points to a more complex thing. So that was like a start. But what's interesting is like it's not like any book was going to convince me, and I think that'll probably be. I bet if I read that book, which I wrote down, The Tortured by Christ or whatever, I bet it's probably a similar story. Because most atheists I know, like who were converted or became like Christians or believers of some kind, like it usually wasn't just a process of like somebody being like, see, I proved you wrong, like, and I think that's the compelling part. Because I think like the question is more like the best question. And I kind of wish we had like Jake back on here so he could like, because I don't want to just have like some blind discussion about like atheism without an atheist, To be fair, we're probably going to be a little biased in our conversation because we're both believers. But it's
I hate atheists.
Yeah, screw them all. But it's like one of those things of I definitely think the conversation needs to be more in a direction of it needs to happen more in like on a philosophical level to get anywhere. And I don't mean to get anywhere like change minds or anything, but to be productive at all. Because it's like often it'll just end up being like a bunch of scientific arguments that like honestly like neither party is usually well prepared for, and like in the majority of those scenarios it's not like scientists having those discussions, so it's like it's kind of like I think it's a lot more important to like get into the philosophical stuff, like what's your basis for morality, and not like personal basis. Adam was saying he is an atheist, but not a typical atheist. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's weird because it's like I don't view it as like this strange conclusion. I think it's a pretty logical one, but it's because like I think I said this to you too, Frank, but it's like some of the nicest people I know are atheists, so it's like I know some atheists that are nicer than people I know who are Christians, so it's like it's always a hard conversation to bring up like the moral argument to an atheist, because a lot of the times they'll misunderstand and think you're saying they're immoral or like that they're a bad person. And it's like, no, I'm not talking about your own personal morality, like I'm sure you have, in fact, like most atheists I know are like the most moral people on the planet, you know?
Yeah.
It's just more of like, what is the basis philosophically for morality? And that's like a really good one. Like, I love that. I'm totally rambling here, but Adam brought up the the topic, and I'm like, hey, I'm doing a page about it. I'm more than happy to talk about that kind of stuff. But if you want to change the topic, Frank, too, we can. But yeah, it's just. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. We can talk about it. I do have a question though about. I guess it would be the extreme of the atheist because I have the Turaco Creative Cast, so now more people are kind of reaching out. So one guy that reached out, he's got a Kickstarter. I looked at his stuff. His art's great, but he is an avid devil worshiper, and sometimes, like he'll say in he's done articles where he is a satanic, but it's kind of like the flip side of Christianity, except talking about God, he's talking about the devil. And when he comes on, I've seen him on shows because I checked out some of his stuff. Like, nice guy, mentions it once in a while. We'll mention the books because a lot of them are have a lot of like devil worship imagery or theology behind it. And he reached out, so I kind of like, all right, we'll see. And then I was just checking out some of the stuff. Like, I think ethically, just by my personal morals, I wouldn't be able to consciously promote something like that. Even though I think he's a nice guy and his art's great, but it's like I would be promoting Satanism because like his books most of them are heavy in it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
and it's like, not like a bit.
Am I wrong for that, or is it because like?
I don't know. I think you can't judge anyone like in the sense of like if I wanted to go on a show or something and I mentioned that my comic deals with like faith and like my story or whatever, and it happens to like touch on Christianity too, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like if somebody were like, you know what, like I can't have a Christian on my show, I'd be like, okay, like like it doesn't, like, to me that doesn't. I mean, it would suck to hear that, but at the same time, it's like I think that's each person's call to make. My own way of approaching that, it's weird because I literally have friends that are Satanists, like legit, like Satanists, but they're like, it's kind of weird. It's like they wouldn't view, like, for them it's more like a tongue-in-cheek thing, and it's like, as a believer myself, it's like I do actually, it's gonna sound corny to like somebody who doesn't believe what we believe, but it's like I definitely think it's dangerous. But it's like I don't think a lot of, from my experience at least, I haven't met like a lot of Satanists who are actually like, like going to like rituals and doing stuff. Like, I think even if they're doing that, I think a lot of it's like tongue in cheek for a reaction. Kind of like similar to like the, like the metal bands in like the 80s that were like, Satan. And like they were kind of doing that just to sell records because they knew it would like make a bunch of parents flip out. And so that like, and then if parents flip out, then kids are like, what is this? Like, this is dangerous. Like, I got to check out this dangerous thing, so it's like, it's hard to judge, but I think it's like to each their own. Like, for me, it's like, I don't know. I might have that person on because I like engaging other people, but I also understand that might be like a unique thing to me. Like I think it really just depends on what you want to do. Cause like to me, it's more of like, I don't know, like my view of God is like, I don't think he's threatened by Satan, like
that is true.
Yeah. So it's like, in a weird way, it's like, I don't really like, I mean, I definitely think it's like, I would warn someone if they were starting to get into that kind of thing. Like, but it's like I'd still engage in dialogue. I don't know if that's a good call though. Like that's not a judgment on you, because it's like that's my approach to it. It's weird.
Yeah, and I haven't told him yes or no. I just like,
yeah.
If he wants to reach out again, because I think he was busy with something, and like, all right, and so I hadn't even talked to him, but I was just kind of like, well, I'm not sure if I would want to have him on, just because you've seen how I do the show, that I just pretty much like, let's talk about the person, what are they doing, promote their stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't really like, oh, let's engage in this conversation.
Yeah.
So it would be like if I don't say anything, like if I just, oh yeah, cool, check out his stuff. So it will be kind of like I will be promoting that. But so I don't know. Like, and I'm still new to this also. So
yeah, me too. Oh, Jake in the chats is here too. Jake, if you want to join in, man, I was just about to like talk about like some of my favorite talking points when talking about Christianity and atheism. So, and I was actually saying like it'd be fun to get an actual atheist on to like talk about it. So, if you want to join on, I don't know like if that's something you'd want to publicly discuss or whatever, but if you want to hop on, we don't even have to talk about that, but I thought it might be fun. But anyhow, if you want a link, let me know, Jake. I'll throw you a link. We can also just talk comics and stuff, but I love getting in discussions about that. So for me, like, yeah, like I think you drawing the line where you need to on that is fine, Frank. Like it's kind of like, I mean, there's even verses about that or whatever where like Paul talks about like it's permissible to eat any food, but if somebody has like an issue with like a certain food, don't like eat it in front of them. Like I would kind of see it like one of those scenarios where like if you feel convicted about it, like follow your conviction. Don't let me like talk you out of it. Oh, sweet. So Jake's gonna hop on. That's awesome. Okay, cool. And I do want it to be like a kind discussion, because it's like it's more of like I can actually argue. Let's see here. Let me see. Okay, Jake, I got to do it through. Let me pull up the Discord. Hold on a sec. So this might be fun. And then Adam, you're more than welcome to join in too if you want, man. But if not, no worries. Let me see here. Let's see. Where is the... I'm blanking out on the messenger here. Why am I not seeing that? Okay, there it is. Boom. My goodness. All right, Jake, I sent you a link. I have a feeling Jake like enjoys those conversations too. So, yeah. So for me, it's more like maybe Jake will hop on too, but like the moral question is a huge one. Here we go. Jake, how you doing, man?
Hi. I'm a little bit toned down, and I'm not as riled up as I was like the past stream. So I'm going to be very level-headed. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Well, actually, the last stream was fun, man. It was great having you on. It's nice to meet you in person, in virtual person too, because you're a fun dude. So, no, It's funny. Adam was mentioning because I'm getting into a part in my comic that talks about like Christianity and atheism, and he was saying it was a really interesting conversation to him, and I was like, I want to get into it, but I also feel bad having that discussion because I'm totally biased on it, obviously. Yeah. And so it's like, to me, it's like way more fun conversation to have with an actual atheist. And I want to also be clear, like, I want to have that conversation with like no objective, just to have the conversation. Cause I like exchanges of ideas. Like that's the main thing for me. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So like for me, I feel personally, and I'm sure you've gotten in conversations with like believers before, because if like when I was an atheist, that would happen all the time. Sometimes I'd seek it out because I enjoyed it. It's a fun exchange. But like for me, I feel like the scientific thing, like there's some interesting things you can go into, but it's kind of a lost conversation because I think it's more of a philosophical question rather than like a scientific one. I think like a science thing, it's like you start kind of in realms like when you're scientifically trying to have conversations about like ethics, morality, like meaning, like, it feels like a lost discussion, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. So when testing belief, I'm going to preface by saying this: I'm from a different culture, and the way that we engage with the way that we engage in confront about religion mostly is sort of like a cold distance approach. It's not as a fervent as it's not as fervent or as heated as a debate with like a mega church Christian versus Reddit level of atheist on the playground of some school.
So not quite like I was when I was an atheist.
It's like an attitude adjustment when it comes to like when approaching things. Despite having I don't think that it chucks it all up to like the faith and the positioning that you want to poise yourself. And try to socially debate about it or personally debate about it when it comes to like and more of an intimate conversation in closed rooms. The thing is that I find it to be a bit of being an attitude adjustment towards the people that you're trying to be engaged with. It's a whole like thing that we talked about yesterday of having putting your opinions before having to like do the due process of talking. The way that I see with like atheism that I'm sort of put in, it has never been about debating out the points or like trying to articulately throw insults and like being based and red pilled and all that dumb shit. It has been it's more or less the like you can confine yourself to that. You can still at the end of the day come out of the discussion and still have those beliefs that you're thinking about intact and not worn and torn to pieces, because that's not at least for my ethics, not up to snuff when it comes to treating other people with common courtesy. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things to unpack when it comes to these things, and I think that for some atheists it'd be nice to like wanted to put that foot in front as sort of like a good step of like being courteous and not being not being disrespectful out the door,
and I think
find commonalities with the person that you're engaging with. That is the most important thing that you can do. And for us, it's comics. For me and Frank, it's been comics for the most part. We don't discuss a lot of faith. When we do discuss it, it's brought up in more like secluded, more isolated instances of like how do you deal with that? How do you get past these challenges and tribulations?
That makes perfect sense. To me, I think I also think like part of why it gets so contentious is a lot of the times it's hedged on like these sort of gotcha type conversations where there's like almost like an objective to like be like, aha, like, and often like that doesn't really lead you to a better perspective on like what the other person believes or thinks or like why they have those beliefs and thoughts. And like, so for me, it's like, it's kind of like I think a much more interesting conversation to like get into like that's one of the reasons I think it's a good philosophical conversation, because it's like the tit for tat science conversation is weird, and then most of the time I'm pretty much in agreement with like 95% to 99% of what the person backing science is talking about, because I'm one of those weird Christians who thinks that science is also true. So it's like
Wait, what?
but
I need to go. Hold on.
oh yeah, okay, have a good one.
No,
I was just joking.
I was worried. But it's like but like on a philosophical level, I think it's like a fun conversation, and I don't necessarily even want it to get into like debate. It's just more like, for me, when I was an atheist, it was hard for me to find a justification for a morality that was absolute. And that doesn't mean I was immoral. As I would consider myself having been like a very like moral person. Like I, obeyed the law. Like I took good care of my fiance at the time. Like I was good to people around me. I was close to my family, I would, I was very liberal in my politics. So I was all about like helping the downtrodden and that kind of stuff. And it's not like I needed faith to be those things. So but I was bothered by the inability to kind of find an absolute of morality. Like, because for me, like rationally, the best I could do was kind of explain morality as by like a situational or societal thing. Mm-hmm. And that bugged me, because I knew the like the issue with that, like philosophically, where it's like, of course, there's always the ethics exercise of like, if morality is kind of based on like whatever society decides is moral, then if society just decides to do something vastly immoral, and then all the moral people like kind of get taken out, then like you're left with a society that's doing an immoral thing, but now it's moral because everybody thinks it's moral. So, and of course that always uses like, like if Hitler won or something, right? Like, and whatever the general collective of society thinks is moral, is moral, then like if he succeeded in his plan, like suddenly he would be this moral figure. And that always bugged me. I don't know if that makes sense, but that to me was always like a conundrum, and I didn't really have a good answer for it. Not that anyone really needs like perfect answers for like ethics problems or whatever, but like that was one that I always find really fascinating and hard to wrestle with. I don't know if that makes sense.
Do you like the point that you're bringing up with moral relativism? It's sort of like one of those problems that I recognize that I have a tendency towards, and that like I lean into one thing, and that sort of like becomes the central image, like wanting to connect it to everything, like to that concept. When in fact that there could be multiple concepts that could explain it way better, or explore it way more thoroughly. Take for example the Hitler argument of having things becoming immoral is sort of like impeded upon the social game of politics in that era, and in that space, that there was a regression in within German supremacy, and it's and using and sort of like manipulate the German people post World War One into sort of get into the social nationalism of that program, required a lot of more built-in ideas and sort of like gamifying things that we have sort of that we have learned to become kind of effects and social phenomena that occurs through us with proper wordings. Karl Popper with Open Society and Its Enemies. brought up the whole like the paradox of tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people aren't agreeing uh, with that paradox of tolerance thing. But there are people that are agreeing with it, and that itself becomes the paradox of of tolerance towards the idea of paradox of tolerance.
Exactly.
So there's I think the more out thought things become, the more we can like adjust to put words and terms into these things.
Yeah.
The problem that I see when it comes to discussing with religion is that it doesn't want to go as far as wanted to straight off the book. And when it comes to moral impairment or moral relativity and the like, is because it's sort of the things that are still vocabulary that has been built upon 15, 16, 1700 philosophy that has still had those frameworks, with the majority of Christians being Christian and philosophers at the same time. So those things are sort of words that are being embedded throughout the ages and become sort of part of the canon for the vocabulary of exploring these ideas within the safe confines of still retracting to sources that are of people that have sort of that commonality.
Mm-hmm.
It is easier to be a friend with somebody and explain ideas and thoughts and things, and when you have so much transcendence in that common ground, it becomes tolerable to live with them in a sense. And when they present more of a brazen character and not want to let in alternate perspectives onto that stuff, it becomes difficult. And I'm limited to plenty of ideas and things because I can't think all at once of these things. If I could, you would have like an open third eye constantly if you were to easily not regurgitate, but reflex yourself into that whole idea space and concept and abstract space. But you'll be probably you'll be probably talking to other people as if you were a madman or just crazy. So I think it's also part of our human limitations as well, in that we can only go for so long to store memory and data within our brain and current thoughts and ideas. That we have to reserve to create sort of dispensaries for these things. That's where the internet comes in, and books and media and all of these things, so that we can reserve all of that analysis, all of these experiments that we're doing, and the ways that we communicate. Like right now, I'm feeding this whole spiel into the internet by just tapping into that like problem. You might not want to call it a problem. I'm just calling it because I'm a little bit sleepy. So yeah.
Oh no, that's cool. It's like, it's fascinating, and it's definitely like you're right in the sense of like it's hard to have these conversations without like pulling from stuff that people who had certain like biases have written before. Like I definitely get that. It's just like fascinating to me. I don't know, like I'm a person who like I like to think about stuff, and like regardless, like I still to this day like think heavily about like like conundrums. Like a good one that I'll bring up that bugs me in Christianity right now, right? And keep in mind, it's not like I'm going to lose my faith tomorrow because of this thing, but it's like I tend to think that like if God of the Bible or whatever is truth, right? Like truth can't negate truth. So to me, everything I've read about science and like the most compelling versions of reality that have been kind of mapped by scientists, like back the fact that evolution was likely the way we got here, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, up to the point of like the most recent coronavirus vaccine that uses RNA, and it's like the existence of RNA was postulated based on the theory of evolution, where it's like, okay, if we have this DNA and it can't self-replicate, that would literally disprove evolution. So we have to look for something that would self-replicate within DNA, and they found RNA because they're like, evolution's true, so there's got to be this thing, and they looked for it and found it because the theory has constantly been backed up in practice, you know. So for me as a Christian, like that brings up all sorts of like implications. Like there's some really cool things about it, like you know, like Genesis talked about a beginning, and there being nothing before a beginning, and like most humanists and people who didn't believe in a god of some sort usually believed in this idea of like an eternal universe theory. You know, including early evolutionists, like they thought that the universe just was kind of eternal. And so it's the Big Bang, and like that revelation is like really cool, and it kind of aligns with Genesis in a weird way. But then there's all sorts of other issues, and the main one is like the theological one. This is one that I get bothered by, which is if death came into the world before the first sin. I know it's absurd to even talk about, but it's like, if it came into the world before the first sin, then that's problematic theologically, right? So it's like if dinosaurs and different animals like kind of evolved and had to die to make other animals and stuff like that, like it creates a theological quandary and a problem that I personally like wrestling with in my head. Like I actually like researching it and reading about it. And I'm not tempted because of that to like go to Answers in Genesis and suddenly be a like fan of Ken Ham or something. Cause I'm like, it's like, I don't think I'm not going to be compelled to like believe somebody who doesn't know science very well, like to answer a question that, you know, and I don't know science that well, but I know it better than a lot of those guys. And so it's like, for me, that's a fun thing to wrestle with. I know it's weird, but it's just like, when I was an atheist, very similarly, I had certain issues. One of the main ones was like I said, the problem of like relativity when it comes to like moral relativity. That was problematic for me because I considered myself somebody who like believed there was a right and wrong. It's just hard to prove like scientifically. And I've seen like attempts at it. Like I remember Dawkins did the selfish gene, and I read it and I was like, oh, this is, it almost worked, but it didn't work for me. Like as a justification, it just didn't, because it didn't explain, you know, certain intrinsic things that I think most of us would agree are moral, you know, like self-sacrifice and stuff like that. So that's one that just bugged me. I don't know. To me, I like getting in those conversations, like what I just talked about with Christianity too, where it's like, I don't mind being vulnerable and talking about like the stuff that I'm bothered by in my own belief system. Cause I like, you know, there's other stuff too. Like Paul gets kind of misogynistic in like later books of the Bible. There's a lot of really big problematic stuff in the Old Testament too, but it's like, you know, there's things that I wrestle with as a Christian, you know?
Yeah.
And I think any Christian really should wrestle with those things. But it's like, I also had things I wrestled with as an atheist, you know, and that was one. The other one was just the purpose thing. But I think you're on a different philosophical standpoint than I was at the time, because I was like a pure existentialist. And so like a very hardcore nihilistic existentialist. And so it's like, I think that might be a little different, because I think you mentioned you were like a stoic, right? So I think
I'm gonna explain you the deal here when it comes to me. But before I do that, I want to like add on to like a point. Just like bounce off your point when it comes to the whole the science thing. I'm not good at science.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I do personally believe that is fundamental to the universe is atrophy.
That's totally true, actually.
And time is sort of atrophy at work.
Yeah.
In a way. And that has influenced me to like look into why things degrade and why they deteriorate, but also arises and renews itself.
Mm.
Now
that's
back
a good
to
one. Sorry, that's
Now
fascinating. That's one of my favorites. One of my favorite things in science is that, like, the fact that all things are decomposing. It's a really weird, like, everything's decaying and we're not quite sure why, and that's interesting too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I build onto that whole atrophy thing, I'm personally of no I don't really like to identify with anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't throw in labels to my name. I kind of feel repulsed of wanted to label myself anything. I know that I am a couple of things, but it's also in like that whole mind game of the eyes of the beholder, in that the way that people assume or sort of attaches things onto you unquestionably, because that's how they base and navigate the world and such. It becomes harder for me to like wanted to actually solidify myself a like grounded a grounded type of way of thinking, way of living. I'm not a stoic. I don't claim to be anything of that sort. But I do like to learn the stories, and I like to learn of the philosophies and the functions.
Yeah.
I'm more that. I guess you can call me a life student. That is sort of like the closest thing that you can give me as an identifier in the way that I want to like approach life.
Yeah.
And trying to be open and trying to listen and trying to have an expansion. The dilemma there is that I'm only living in a linear time, and that I can only assert so much. And for the same reason that you shouldn't trust everyone, I cannot trust myself in that I will probably carry out that goal 100% without having some kind of qualm or struggle with the current information that I'm currently possessing, because I only live for so long and for so many hours at a day.
Yeah.
My only time that I can like spend to engage with people would be to constructively go in here with good faith arguments and trying to explore these things calmly, rather than to pull out all my big science energy and yada yada.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's limitations to what you can actually present to yourself and present to the world, and the way that you can engage with it. And I think that ties sort of like back to that whole atrophy point again, in that you got to be constructive, or at least persistently or acutely aware of this thing being a part of yourself, and then you have to like move accordingly. So that you can like leave a trace of yourself, but at the same time be engaged with people, so that you can leave the world a better place that you left it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good way of putting it too. I have a friend who has like this podcast where he just interviews people on what they change their mind on. And it's one of my favorite things in the world to listen to. Because it's like, it's actually like what you're describing about like just sort of like, like the ability to be kind of fallible too, where it's like, as a learner, it's like approaching things from a standpoint of like, I could be wrong though, like it's so important. And we're as people, I think in general, we're really bad at it. at doing that, like the ability to kind of change our minds on something we're really convicted about, or that, like, this might actually be more of like a particular US thing, but it's like the idea of somebody even switching parties, like political parties, is so rare here, because people get dug in and kind of embedded. It's not, I don't often meet somebody who like grew up in a certain party and changed their mind, and or much less like changed their mind and then changed it again and then changed it again.
You have now.
Yeah, nice.
I changed as I got older. I changed the way I voted.
Nice. I didn't know that. That's cool. What made you change your mind? Out of curiosity, just
what I was seeing in the current political party that I was going for. There's just some stuff I didn't agree with, and some stuff I did, so in one of the elections, I switched, but I still wasn't sure. Like, I just voted differently. Like, I didn't like, okay, now I'm this party and that's it. I was like, well, like I don't know about this candidate, or this candidate, but this one kind of wants to eradicate church beliefs a little bit. Like, they kind of touched on it, but it wasn't like, all right. I mean, I wasn't sure, but like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna vote different this time, and
nice.
And then just took it from there. So it wasn't like, that's it. I'm done. Like, new friends. So it's just
I actually think that's pretty rare. I mean, which is cool. That's pretty rare to actually. I mean, I definitely changed. I've changed belief systems. I've changed political preferences for sure. And a lot of that just had to do with like new information, where I was just like, oh, okay, I have to change, based on new information,
Yeah, I think that's what it was at first. It was just like finding more information about certain parties. So like, and both parties weren't coming up smelling like roses either. But okay.
Yeah, parties are. I mean, there's no like clean politicians, at least in the U.S. There's a couple that are a little bit moral, but I tend to doubt any politician. I don't know. Jake, do you know a bunch of great, honest politicians?
I'm not like that big into politics that way. I don't trust anybody when it comes to that whole psychopathic game.
Yeah, that's a tough one too. And then it's like,
even the ones. Sorry, Josh.
Go ahead. No,
even the ones that we were brought up to believe, like, oh, these were like great politicians, like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Like later, like you find out, like, oh, George Washington owned slaves, and
yeah.
Like, oh, they did this and they believed that, and oh, okay, all right. Well.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like when the more you go down the path of like reading history, like the more you find just a lot of flawed, like messed up people. Occasionally doing sort of the right thing, like almost in spite of themselves,
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Jake?
It's sort of like my favorite thing about the many hidden layers of human error, in the way that we want to present the most virtuous and the most accomplished in order to strive for something, but you never know if that information is either intentionally filtered out, or it's sort of adopted into creating a sense of direction when it comes to culture. I know for the American, from what I know of American history, it seems that in order to have sort of that pioneering spirit, there's the American experiment going forwards in a sense, and then you have like modern America come post railroads when they got completed, because after the railroads, everything sort of changed in a sense, and modern America became about the game of more of like exploitation through or like trying to exploit the systems rather than to build your own empires, because most of the empires now are corporatized or dressed through corporations. And that whole image has become like the wrestle with the American culture in the way that they still want to pertain that whole like American icons or the American image of and it's usually tied into that whole like religious aspect, and that there is also people that are held up as paramounts. No, not paramounts.
Paragons.
Paragons. That's the word. Thanks, Frank. Paragons to sort of push forward this sort of like where that the people that are using that icon try to sell you. And selling on reflects back to the whole thing of memes again. In that you want people to be conscripted to that idea because they have shared they have shared likenesses and attributions that can be that could be you if you wanted to or desired to be, but it overshadows or overcasts a lot of the sacrifices and a lot of the risks. It's sort of you can definitely relate it to when I say artists, when they when people are seeing the success that you have, they don't know how much toil and blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of tears and depression, to be honest, go into like the nights and the whole like crippling doubt of do I even like want to, do I even deserve this? All of that is scrubbed away because it's not documented, as well as these accomplishments. Because that's sort of like the whole it's not misinformation or obscuring information, but it's withholding that information or withholding that part of people, and it becomes more easier to again become more attracted to that person if they're very authentic. And a lot of authenticity is now sort of like that social commodity that's being traded nowadays, because people like a likable person who appears friendly, who engages friendly, and all of that. But they're still selling on that idea of them in an idealized form rather than the true facts and objective facts. That might be hidden somewhere in a secret facility or in an archival not meant for the public eye or whatever, especially when it comes to politicians and the like. There are these things that are not as easy to hide, like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, and these cats. But nowadays, it's becoming way harder to do that because everybody's sort of like playing this whole facade. It's just like who can play the best facade the longest and obscure most about the information they present and all that stuff. I'm actually now doing that whole dance performatively, but through my persona. But I'm trying to come more or less off as like-minded in the pursuit of wanting to better mankind in some ways, but probably from an alternate view or from a different drive altogether. This is the problem that I have. I connect a lot of ideas and things, and it seems like an incoherent mess. So pardon if you cannot follow the whole rambling. By the way, I'm Jake Twister. Hit me up on Twitter at JTwister if you want to be staying updated on my comics journey.
And actually, I like your ramblings, but it might be because I'm very similar and I ramble pretty. I kind of follow that mode of thinking because that's kind of how my mind functions. So yeah, so you're more than welcome to kind of have those musings and thoughts because it's I think pretty cool. I remember being really shocked about some of the kind of misinformation we were fed as kids, and I don't think that's unique to the U.S. I think that nation states tend to program the masses a little bit, and it's just sort of an inevitable. Like some of it's even unintentional, where it's like if you're going to write a story, let's say like Frank blows up and becomes like this huge famous artist like tomorrow, and when they write his story, like they're going to write it with an angle of like a rags to riches story, like they're going to write it from an angle of like whatever narrative they're going to tell, where it's going to have a story arc to it, and by having a story arc, inevitably certain information is going to get edited out, like in that story.
Yeah, you see that already with that three-act structure being present in The Rocket Man and what's that musical with? The name escapes me. The leading queen.
Yeah, right. Where it's like it's gonna.
And there's a ton of like misinformation there too. I appreciate that there's like a channel that sort of like watches films and tries to like score it by accuracy. It's called Cynical Historian.
Oh, nice.
YouTube. And he goes through like the historical events and the like faulty portrayals that some movies do. He's done like Black Hawk Down, a couple of autobiographies and such. The one movie with Dick Cheney, portrayed by Christopher. No, not Christopher Walken. Christian Bale. Sorry.
I still haven't seen that one. Was that any good? Like,
no.
Out of curiosity, no. I have a strange feeling like there's probably quite a lot of those biographical movies that are not up to snuff or any good.
I mean, like one of my favorites is The Aviator, but I know that that movie is sort of presenting it with a little bit of that whole like eccentric flair of fantasy through the lens of Martin Scorsese.
Well, Scorsese's hard to dislike. Although, did he do that recent one on Netflix?
The Irishman? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little tough.
I haven't seen it, but from what friends have all talked about it, it seems like an interesting movie. It's just that it should have been divided into 3 chapters.
Yeah, it's a good plot. It's just it's one of those films where my suspension of disbelief was just a little interrupted, because there's a point where they have like De Niro kind of and I'm not giving away plot points or anything, but they have De Niro kind of in youngified, basically, like
de-aged
with CGI. Yeah, but it's not very convincingly de-aged, so he looks like maybe 10 years younger than he does. And there's a scene where like, this guy keeps referring to him as the kid over here, and I was like, I don't, because it's like if somebody's talking, like pointing and going like this young kid, you just won't believe him, and the guy's saying it's like 30, and he's pointing to a 60-year-old, where it's like, that took me out of the film, and that happened like I was being asked to believe he was younger, and it was like, I don't know. I almost wish they hadn't done any effects, and then like at least I'd be like, okay, so we're playing pretend. That's okay, But the semi effects on that. Other than that, it was kind of fun. It was interesting to see now I'm forgetting his name. Joe Pesci. It's interesting to see him not playing the hothead. Like,
Yeah.
So it's definitely fun. It's a little long too, but
What movie was this?
The Irishman.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Joe Pesci's in it?
Yeah, he plays like a labor organizer. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
But he's like,
in a long time.
Yeah, he's playing. Usually he plays like the hot-headed henchman.
Yeah.
And in this one, he's playing like more like the mastermind, kind of guy. So it's kind of an interesting shift.
Now you actually reminded me. I gotta watch the On the Waterfront.
I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen it, and it's sort of like the breakthrough of Marlon Brando. So I need to get on that.
Wait a second.
Could have been a star. I could have been a contender.
Yeah, I think I actually have seen that like a long, long time ago. Because I cannot in my head like rectify when or what that was about, but I do remember that line. Okay, so we've gone for an hour. I'm going to take a 20-second break, and then I will be right back. So,
yep.
Thanks you guys for hanging out with me. It's kind of fun to have company whilst working on comics.
Yeah.
And drawing weird people collapsing from cogs. I don't know.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Cognitive. Ooh, the pun there was pretty on point, Jake. All right.
So, yeah, what have you been working on, Frank?
Nothing much. Just finished up a page for the Captain Goggles and Mask Woman issue 2. It's the one I've already done the pencils for. Now I'm just going over it on the computer. So I just finished page 3, and I did finished up page 1. Today was just like the cover page, and then the page 2 I finished yesterday, so I already got 3 pages of that done.
Nice.
Yep. It's more than I've done today.
Yeah. Well, it helps when you have the pencils already done, so I just kind of like took a picture.
Man, I had to jump straight into inks on that project that I'm in.
Oh, how's that coming along?
I've done like 4 pages, but I've still got 4 pages left, and I haven't like done inks on them. They're all blank, so I have to solve the thing in my head, as if it were like the thumbnail in my head.
Oh no.
It's not a biggie. I tend to like cook. I like to cook under pressure like that. The only thing is that I was supposed to go to sleep before I got invited, so. But now that I'm here, I want to sit through another hour.
Yeah, me too. I was gonna actually I was just checking in, and I was gonna go to bed, and I'll come on for a little bit.
Well, I do want to reiterate, you guys are not pressured to stay, so you can leave at any point in time.
No. I need.
Yeah,
go ahead. On. No, you go on. You're older than me.
Jake, I just finished page 3, so I did get something done. So actually, it did help me. Because I was just going to do this tomorrow if I had time, but now I just got out of the way. So.
I love it. Well, I'm going to plan on trying to power through a little bit longer. I may not finish a page tonight, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, my panels are small and pretty simple since it's just for a mini comic. So I can knock out more of these pretty quickly, just because they're smaller panels.
Yeah, I've saved a lot of the smaller panels for last, and also the final page. The final page is like a half page bleed. So I got that cut out for me when it comes to that part. I don't have to fill it in with a lot of information and stuff because it's primarily been focused on doing a lot of establishing in this story. and I've had to work through that with page 2 and 3, mostly because I had to place the location, and I had to like enrich it in detail and such, and I had to introduce the players to the story a little bit more enriched in detail. But as soon as we get through like page 4, I can start to do a little bit more expressionistic angles, so I don't have to put as much effort into like drawing a lot, and make it so that the tones and the close-ups of the camera do the work for me instead.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For this page, the first 2 panels are text panels, so that was a more tedious part for me, just like having to type out stuff. But once this was finished, the next 2 pages is a double page spread, so that's gonna be drawing more, drawing a big a cool scene, which and on the computer I'll be able to add a little bit more detail.
Oh yeah, it's the Stegosaurus.
It's Ankylosaurus.
Yeah, the Ankylosaurus. Sorry, I forgot the name. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, it's the robot Ankylosaurus. So I call it the Tanklosaurus, and it's called Anky for short.
Nice.
And that's Math Woman. And I did this kind of thing where it's like starts off. It looks like there's 2, but it's just that's just like coming out of the thing, and then this is just here.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to do like a speed line or something so you can tell it's like just 1. But,
it's a great idea.
I'll do this tomorrow. Now I'm trying to figure out, because I'm going to do this as a PDF first, but I am going to want to have it printed out, sent to a print place. So for the PDF, should I do it like this, like when people read it? Because they're just going to read it like this and like this. So I don't know. But here, that's a pull off when you have to like fold the page on its side.
Can't you show PDF files with 2 pages on them? I don't remember anymore.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess that you have to like flip the page for like a vertical view to like force the double page spread. But it will sort of break the pacing in that you will have 1 vacant page, and then it will ruin the flow if you built the structure of the story that way, in a sense.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're making a PDF, you can have like 1 page of the PDF like change in format. So you could have like all of them sized at whatever 5.5 by, what is that? 5.5 by
10.
Yeah, something.
Oh, I'm not sure. I just
whatever small size that is, just double it for one spread and have it as 1 solid part of the PDF that widens just on 1 page. You can do that.
Okay.
So, like, PDFs don't, like, I could make a PDF of like an A4. I'm only saying that because I don't even know in my head what an A4 is, because we always go by just like inches, but it's like, you could do an 8.5 by 11 and then I have the next page of the PDF be 11 by 17. Like, that's totally possible. So why not?
Yeah, and the PDF is just for like the virtual readers. So like something else on the copy account. But I am gonna turn this into a physical book. So I'm gonna collect all the mini issues, and that'll serve as an intro to like a bigger story of Captain Goggles and Eskelman.
Yeah.
And like, I do want to do issue 0 where it's just like the exposition. Like, oh, this is Captain Goggles, and here's some information. There's Eskelman, here's some information. They're gonna team up, and then just so you kind of get, okay, this is who these characters are, and that's it.
So there are 2 things that I want to bring up. One way that I've seen that solves that issue online is to still divide the pages as it's supposed to be presented, You have like the both of them, but they're separated into pages. But in scanlations of manga, they divide those pages up, and then they present another picture with those stitched together. So you can sort of add an additional page in a sense, but you have to adjust it so that it will count for 2 pages, but lay down horizontally.
Smart.
And for the other one is the fun thing about double page and bleeds in general. When it comes to double page, is that you have to sort of calculate whatever of the content that you're putting into have to become sort of especially when it comes to reading physical books, make sure that all that information that is being presented is sticking to that to like not so close to the center of the binding.
Yeah.
So that people won't have to like bend the whole back of the book and sort of like accidentally snap it. That's one of my, not a pet peeves, but one of my biggest fears when it comes to like reading a comic is that you have like this great double spread and all that information that you want to like grab in like full detail. You don't want to pop it all the way so that you bend it out beyond 180 degrees.
Yeah, that's a good point. Generally, like.
Well, I was gonna put all the information right here on the spine. Is that a bad idea?
Yes. No, do it. No. But if you move Anki and the Masked Woman a little bit more to the left there, I think
there probably
won't
be any text here except for at the head out or headquarters or something, or meanwhile, like it would just be like one little text bar here somewhere.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the idea of avoiding stuff in that safe area is like a good call, and also finding out your printer, like depending on where you print it, they're gonna have different safe areas for text and stuff too. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully I won't have to make a lot of adjustments because I'm just after I finish these, I merge them. So hopefully I don't have to go back and redo anything.
I will say, like, just as a rule of thumb, like where I work, like whenever we do a catalog or you send anything to print, like especially if you're doing offset, like you just want to plan on that. Like you pretty much are going to plan that there's going to be stuff. There's going to be stuff you have to fix.
Yeah, plan the offset and trim line so that whenever you do like test prints, you won't have to recall hundreds of books because then you will have that one reading proof. Just like to make sure that you've done the offset right.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely also make sure you plan a little bit of time just in case you have to fix stuff up because generally with books, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong.
Yeah, we had that problem with our holiday special with Frank's story not being presented properly in the holiday special.
Yeah, one page got left out, and I didn't notice it until I was just like going through the binder because I was the sample binder because I was showing it to a friend of mine. Look, I did my story and like, wait, there's a page missing. And it wasn't like a big important page, but it was like the final page that just kind of gave the message like Merry Christmas, everyone. And it was a nice image of Captain Courage at the nativity scene, kind of being like at least part of it. So I was like, oh man, like, well let me message Peter, and he had to go and redo it.
Who does the layouts for the anthology books, and then how did those start? Like, I'm curious because I don't know a ton about it, so I'd love to hear.
You want to explain that, Frank?
Yeah. So the anthology itself came out because it's the Discord, it's the comics Discord AAA creators. They want to make comics, and it was Peter Seckler, Imperium Vol. he and this other guy, Sir Handsome Evan, or Sir, yeah, I think it was like Handsome Evan. Um, I think one of them had done some print-on-demand books before,
Okay.
and they were talking about, hey, we should do an anthology, and they were just gonna do it with just them two. But they decided to open it up, and I'm assuming they asked Marshall, and Marshall said, "Yeah, open it up." And so people kind of like jumped in. He set up a basic theme, so he took charge of it. He's the one that there's a couple of editors, but he's like the main editor, and he sets everything. He puts uh, picks all the pages and puts them in a PDF file, and does the layouts and everything. So we just do our pages, we send them in. If we need to fix something, usually I'm the one that has to like resize because I'm still trying to figure out what A4 and A5 and this PX and that means. So like, just tell me the information and I'll type it in, and that's it. Uh, but yeah, so like we just started doing that, and the first one, is the superheroes one, and like I think the majority of the ones in there haven't published before, or they have published. It was just like maybe one or two things.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
so it was a way for us to get in the habit of meeting deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a story, a simple 8-page story. Doing it within the group, and there's an editor there that we can like send our scripts to. Usually, I'll just like send a couple of things, but I don't usually send in the script because I don't really do scripts, and that's my fault because I just kind of like, as I'm drawing it, I'm trying to think of this would make a good story.
So you do more of like the Stan Lee route, where you're like, you make the art interesting and then just kind of make up the stuff on the spot.
Yeah.
It's a way to do it.
Well, I'm learning it's not the best way because sometimes it does take me a while. So I'm learning on that, just doing a better script, and like with this, the Captain Goggles and Masked Woman, it's sort of a collab. It's between me and Anna, but I'll just shoot ideas and she'll come up with some ideas, and she did the design for Masked Woman, so I put her as she's a part of it, like so. But she didn't like physically write anything except for like when she's typing out notes, and I'll just kind of take those. So I consider it a collab because she put a lot of input in this.
Awesome.
But I'm doing like the art and like typing everything and the layout. So, but I'll run it by her like, hey, does this look good? Hey, what about this? Or can we? What do you think if we went with this route? So like it turned into a small mini comic about just a joke on how, like if you've seen the first one, it's just a joke on how she'll type a long response, and it's just me like doing stuff around the house, but I just did it as Captain Goggles, and then it turned into like this whole science fiction type of thing. So now
Nice.
with robot
awesome.
dinosaurs. Like, okay.
Sounds like fun. So the 9-volt, so they kind of put it together in the AAA community, and then how long's the AAA community been going too?
It's been going for
about
over a year.
Okay.
We had our year anniversary. We might actually be going
29th of August, so it's been 1.5 years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Well, when we actually did our 1 year, no, actually that was for it was for the AAA. We did our 1 year anniversary stream where Marsh just invited people on from the Discord, and that's when Jake joined in right on the stream, and like he joined the Discord and then went on the stream like, hey, you weren't.
Hey, come on, somebody!
You weren't here for a year. but I knew Stinch from other chats. So like, oh, that's cool. Stinch is on.
That's awesome.
Back then, he went by the name Stinch. Now it's Jake. So I still kind of call him Stinch by accident. So I have to like correct.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's just us making comics, and I like the term was already around, but I just kind of popularized it. Make comics, not excuses. So that's just something I was saying, and they took it as like part of their model. And
Nice.
so, but that's pretty much that's what we do. Like we just we'll make comics, and we'll like sometimes we'll talk about different things, but mostly it's just like comics and stories and
It's awesome.
creativity. So yeah,
It's cool. I think that's great.
yeah. I think in June is gonna be our anniversary of the 9-volt being published, the first one.
Cool. And that must have been pretty fun to like see that out and like have that in your hands, like actually get the taste of like a real published book, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we've already done 3, and they're on the 4th one, which they just I think they're just about to finish the deadline for it. So that's gonna be going to print and within the month. That one I stepped out just so I can like take a break because I'd already been doing 3 in a row, and I was kind of like, I need to I need to chill, guys. So I could, like I gotta work on my other stuff because I put a lot of stuff in the back burner, and now I'm working on this series.
Yeah.
Listen, I have to back out. I'll have to leave you now. Something came up right now, and I have to like make a few calls. So,
No worries, man.
But thanks for sticking with me, and thanks for stopping by and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Hang in there.
Goodbye.
Bye.
So let's see here. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool, though. Honestly.
Yeah. So I'm published now in 3 books now because of the 9-volt anthology. So that's something I'm proud of. Like it's something I tell people.
You should
I'm
be.
published. Even I think it was yesterday we had our 30th anniversary at the church of the church being open.
Oh, nice.
And so we rented this hall, and we had a dinner, and I was like editing something real quickly on my phone to upload a video where I did some art, and like one of the teens there that just started coming out, he saw it. He was like, "Oh, so you're like you're kind of like an artist?" And he's like, "Well, I'm published." I was like, "I'm a published comic creator."
Nice.
That's why I'm like, look up lulu.com and look up 9-volt, and like the Christmas anthology came up, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And like, "See that character? That's my character."
That's cool.
So being able to tell people that, like, yeah, you can just look me up. Look,
that is really cool. I love that. All right, I'm gonna get a refill of coffee if you're still down to hang, but if not as well, you're free to go or hang or do whatever you want to do.
I think for maybe like 20 minutes more, but I'm gonna get some water.
Cool. That's perfect. So let's take a very brief break, and then I'll see you in about 10 minutes or whatever, because I think I've got about that much in me to about 20 minutes. So cool. Okay. All right.
All right. All right, it's the Frank Salazar show now. It's my show. I'm gonna run it now. Check out the Truckle Creative Cast Monday nights, new time, 9 p.m. Central. We'll be streaming actually later today with our guest Jason Alexander. Not that Jason Alexander, a different Jason Alexander. And subscribe to Anna Rob on she's on YouTube. Anna Rob. That's it. Give me books to promote. And check out 2 stories on Amazon. Pen. Hey.
All right. So Adam was just asking you, who is Jason Alexander?
I was promoting the Truckle Creative Cast. We have our guest tomorrow will be Jason Alexander, and he's the one that does the mini comic bundles with Aaron Guzman.
Oh yeah, those are so good. I have a couple of those on my desk over here, but they're buried right now.
Yeah, I have some too.
They're really good.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think mine are buried also.
That'll be really cool. Yeah, they're great. What they're doing is so cool. I think. How are you doing, Adam? How are your cleanups and stuff coming along?
There's one of those things.
Yeah, they're so neat. Like it's just like a little piece of art that arrives in the mail.
Yeah,
and makes the day brighter. It's kind of cool. All right, so let's see here. So yeah, this whole section of the comic is all about some of the things that changed my mind about Christianity, which is pretty interesting. What changed your mind? Like, what was your kind of moment? Like, what convinced you, out of curiosity?
Oh man,
heavy question, I know.
Yeah, because there was a few different moments where I when I was I think I was in high school. I think I was like 17. That's when I always had a thirst for Christ. Like I wanted to know more, but I didn't really know who to ask and where to go. And I asked my mom, and she's like, "Oh, well." I was like, how do you become a Christian, or what makes you a Christian? And I was little. I think I was like in 6th grade, and she was like, "Just believe in Christ, and you're a Christian. That's it." Like she didn't really like know that much either. She's like, "No, just like I guess just be a good person and believe in Christ, and you're a Christian." Like, okay, but it really wasn't working out for me. Like I was like I need guidance.
Yeah.
And I was getting in trouble at home, and then with like getting involved with like the neighborhood kids, and some of them were like up to no good. So I think I was like, maybe 13, or I got in trouble with the police because I was doing stuff. I was breaking into houses and the school and like stealing stuff from the schools, and I got caught.
Oh, okay.
So so I was praying to God, like if I didn't get arrested, I'll dedicate my life to you, God. I'll read the Bible more, God. the cops came and they took me in, but I didn't get arrested. I just had I had to do parole.
Hmm.
So for a while, I kept okay, kept reading the Bible, but I didn't really have anywhere to go. So eventually, I just kind of okay, well, I just fizzled out. It wasn't until I was 17 where I was just rebelling. I just wanted to I didn't know what I wanted, but um, causing trouble in school and class. And one of those students started telling me about Jesus, and he has a church that he goes to, and I was like, okay, all right. First I wanted to beat him up because he had reported me to the principal's office because I brought a lighter to school.
Okay.
I was like playing around with it, and I was like doing pranks on the teacher. Uh, I made a fake bomb,
Oh my goodness.
and one of the kids. It was just a stopwatch in a McNuggets box, and no firecracker taped to it. And one of the other kids got it and took it to the teacher, but they turned on the stopwatch, and well, I got in trouble because it was my bomb.
What am I
And
coming back to?
And one of the other how I became a Christian.
I see. By following the anarchist cookbook. Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, you missed out. Wow.
Sorry,
it is interesting. I didn't know all this. I'm fascinated. I'm like, I didn't know
Yeah.
this story.
Yeah, I don't talk about it that much. Yeah, I might as well talk about
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, as long as you're open to talking about it, I'm interested.
Yeah. I thought it was
one
going
of
to be.
So one of the kids kind of reported me, and I found out it was him, and I was like, "Hey, what's up? You reported me?" He's like, "Yeah, like, well, you need Jesus, and like you need to know about Jesus." And at this time, that's when I was searching for God, but I didn't really know where. Like, okay, and you got my attention. Let's talk. So we started talking about it, and he invited me to his church. So I got involved, and later, I think it was around 2021, I started falling away. So I left, and on and off, and then finally I came back when I was in, I think, 34 or 35. That's when I'd already gotten married. Was going through my wife had just left me. So and so I was like, I need something again, and I just felt like God was telling me, you know where you need to go.
Yeah.
So I looked up the church I used to go to, and it was actually closer to where I live now. I just needed to find a ride. So, but I found a way, and I got there, and it's actually a funny story. I think I've mentioned this on the stream, on my stream before, but I looked it up, and that day was a Thursday, but in my mind, something switched that I was thinking it was Wednesday. So that made me want to find church and go to church because I knew they had Wednesday service.
Yeah.
And so I got a ride to the church. I got dropped off, and then my ride was my brother. He left. He took off, and he had forgotten his phone at home. So I saw oh, they're closed today. Let me call him back, but he wasn't answering because he left the phone at home. Someone pulled up and said, "Hey, we have a mentoring class today. If you want to go to that." Sure, okay. And he let me in, and that's where I met my mentor Orlando Salinas, and that's when since then I started getting more involved and coming out to church and being an active member. So so it was just funny how things just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like I was thinking it was Wednesday, oh no, it's Thursday, and then I was gonna. hey, just pick me up. My brother happened to leave his phone at home. The one time he was without his phone.
Irony.
Some
That's cool,
guy,
though.
some guy pulls up. Hey, no, yeah, I'm part of the church. We have something. Let's go. Like, okay, cool.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Man. Well, that sounds like it was like that's very cool. I think that's really amazing. Huh. That's rad. I didn't know all that about your past too. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was I don't know. So, well, I'm writing a book about it, so maybe I shouldn't reveal.
Ooh, spoilers. Juicy information.
Yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about doing a book about it. I was thinking about writing a book about it, but I'm thinking like now that I see yours, so like maybe I'll just make a comic about it.
Yeah. Why not? I think that would be interesting. Like I'm already curious about like the fake bomb and stuff like that. Like it's got elements that would be really interesting to just hear about, you know, because I like that. I want to know more details about like a bunch of it. I want to know more details about. So, but I'm all about like, I don't know. I'm interested in hearing people's stories. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's stuff I left out just because like for time, but like
Yeah, of
there's
course.
stuff I could talk about.
Yeah.
Which I don't think even Jake. I know I told Jake some of this, but I don't think I even told him all of it.
Oh yeah, about the police and the stick. Yeah, that one is one of those.
Some of that. Yeah, so the trouble with the police. I was always getting in trouble with the police.
Yeah, I can't relate with the police trouble stuff, but I can definitely relate to like the rebellion, and I think for me it was like, I don't know, just stuff that I still dislike to this day sort of pushed me away from the whole thing. Oh, here's Corey. We got Corey Kerr.
Oh,
the man himself. Hi there, Corey.
Corey,
Hey,
I
Corey.
need to watch that stream. I saw it like right before going live here, and I'm like, damn it, I want to watch that instead of doing my own stream.
That's cool, man.
Corey did a animation hangout with Jim and a bunch of cool people like Dominic Polchino, which I always mispronounce his last name, but he's great. And then I don't know the other guy, but I'm sure it's
Paul
cool.
Pate was on.
Nice.
And
Oh,
Jim
Paul was
Gordon.
on there too.
Were there any cool people in the chat?
There were several. Yeah.
Yeah.
Several cool people in the chat.
Your answer should be like, no, Frank was not there.
No, Frank was there.
Oh, he was.
I was-
Oh,
Yeah, I was there.
how does Frank do it? I don't understand. He's like, he's ever present on the internet.
I think Frank is everywhere. I think that's the secret.
That's true.
I think Frank is like 3 people that we're just unaware of the other 2, and they're all in like a perception situation. Is that
Ooh.
no Prestige? Is that the one?
Yeah, the Prestige. That's a movie.
One question, Corey. How many people can we have on StreamYard?
I think we can have. It depends on the plan we're on, and I can't remember the plan we're on. The unpaid plan is 6. The paid plan is either 10 or 12, depending on if we're on like the big one or the little one. I can't remember. So it's quite a few.
12 for the paid.
I think it's 12 for the paid. Yeah.
So I just sent Chris is in the chat, but I'm like, I'm just gonna send everybody invites from now on this thing. it's fun when it's like, I don't know, it feels more like an art studio when you're hanging out with other people. So Chris, you're invited. If you're in pajamas and don't want to be on, that's fine too.
You can also just turn your TV off.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
I got a page done while listening to Corey and Jim and all the guys, and I got a page done while talking to Josh right now. So it's been productive for me.
Good. I'm glad. Usually my goal is to make people as least productive as they can be. So you foiled my plot.
I started working right now because I got scared stiff of a phone call. So yeah.
Phone call? Oh no, I don't want to.
Yeah, that's why I had to leave. That's why I had to leave.
I want to ask more details, but I don't want to ask more details. I just hope it wasn't a call from the mob. That's.
Well, it's sort of like a
FBI.
federal mob, so.
Oh no.
Oh. Oh, never mind then.
I'm going to be doing really productive things for a couple minutes.
I love it.
League.
What are you working on, Corey? You're working on video gaming.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right now.
The Rocket League.
I might have to stop. If it stutters, I'll have to turn it off. But I was going through the indie review show comic for tomorrow.
Ooh, yeah. Like Sundays are always a little fun, like the day before, because it's like we have to like read these books, but like with a real analytical eye. And then if you're me, you struggle to boil it down to a simple thing because I usually want to just tell the whole story.
Yeah. And this one, it's the Wizard of Oz, and so everybody's heard the story. Yeah, this is stuttering too much.
So is it the Wizard of Oz like the poem book or the movie?
No,
is it
book.
like so like with all the anti-gold standard stuff?
Yep. Yeah, it's like full on. I mean, it's got like the dialogue, the clunky dialogue, and everything.
Ooh, that sounds
like the
fun.
really on the nose stuff. Like I'm reading through it and I'm like, oh man, I remember. What's that?
It's the original Wizard of Oz?
Well, it's Marvel adapted it with Eric Shanower as the writer and Scotty Young as the artist. But it's based on the actual books. There's eight books and like 30 short stories. And then other people went on to continue writing them afterwards. And so I think they did six of the books before they decided to move on and do something else.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was, they're great. And the art is incredible. And I'm looking at it again with fresh eyes because I was so focused on inks when I first came in contact with it. And now I'm looking at the colors, and the colors are amazing.
So we got Chris, Ronnie Gunter just joined us in the chats. I'm assuming Ronnie is probably prepping for work. He usually stops by and hangs out like right before heading to work. So we're like the last thing he hears before having to go off to corporatedom, which is awesome. So hopefully we make your day better, Ronnie, or worse. I'm just kidding. No, hopefully
have a safe day.
One or the other.
That would be funny though if like for some reason Ronnie just was like really addicted to watching the stream, but it made him feel terrible every day before going to work.
Oh no.
That would be so sad. But yeah, hopefully we brighten your day, sir.
If I remember correctly, there is this like one podcast that weekly meet up just to like talk, but they have to like force themselves into watching Jack and Jill, the movie, the Adam Sandler movie.
Oh no.
Okay. And it's sort of like a ritual that they have like been prepped up so that they get the minutia out of having to watch that, so that they can like talk, because they want to think of everything else aside from Jack and Jill. But that's sort of like a torture device.
That is hilarious. That's equivalent to like the forced cold shower in the morning, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I guess after that, like all entertainment seems excellent, you know.
Yeah.
So are you prepped for it, Corey? And by the way, this strange, mysterious indie review show that you discussed, where would people go to check that out?
You can go to irsagency.com to check that out. And I'm not completely prepped, but I think I've got an angle on it. I think because everybody knows the story already, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. And because it's like hundreds of pages, it's like a 4-inch thick book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's right here. Let's see. This is This is the book. So it's
Oh,
very
Oh wow!
is that an omnibus or something?
yeah, it's an omnibus. I mean, you can get the trade paperbacks, but yeah, it's which I also have, but I liked it a lot. So oh my
Is
gosh,
that $100 on eBay, or
what's that?
is that like $100 on eBay, or how much is that?
It's on Amazon, and I can't remember how much it was. It's up there. I mean, because it's big, but I mean, you can pick up the trade paperbacks, for like normal trade paperback prices. But the omnibus, I think I can't remember. It's up there, 60 to 90 or something like that.
Nice.
Wow.
So it's equivalent to like buying Cages, which by the way, I like gave away my copy of Cages, and so I need to buy that before I get to M's, which will be like 10 years from now. So I feel bad for artists that have a last name that's like later in the alphabet, because I'm not going to get to them for a while. Or let's say I buy a book that's like by an artist that's name, like their last name starts with A, then I'm like not going to get to them for a very long while, 'cause, but anyhow, so
yeah, your method is methodical, yet I like mine better just because I get to do whatever I want.
yeah, that's true. You're going to get to like a lot of the heavy hitters that I won't even have time to get to. You should just start like combing all the ones that start like later in the alphabet just to annoy me. You'll be like, okay, so now we're going to do Spiegelman. And I'll be like, oh, you just,
It says here that it goes for about $75.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but the 10 to 15 for the trade paperbacks to see if you like it.
It's going to be impressive, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's for everybody, but the art is incredible.
Yeah, so is the books too. Like, it's not for everybody.
Yeah,
it's like American dark fantasy, and we.
Yeah, it looks very like it looks like SLG or like Oni Press kind of vibe to it, like like stylistically. Although art wise, the color looks cool. Is it in color on the interiors too?
Yeah.
Ooh,
and the colors are like painterly. I mean, it's like there's texture and there's a kind of a watercolor feel at times. Like it's pretty cool.
That's exciting. I can't wait. That's going to be fun to go through, but it's going to be interesting to see if we can work through that in an hour.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say is I think I'm going to actually focus on his character design.
Oh, nice.
More than anything else, I think that's I mean, he's great at so many different things, but his characters are so unique because he doesn't lock himself into like the need to be anatomically correct.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that's the best part of Scotty Young, when he's drawing, at least.
Yeah. Have you read any of the stuff that he's writing?
Yeah, I read. I'm a Deadpool whale, and I followed his run on it. It was a really hard act to follow, because of Gary Dugan.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to get into like I Hate Fairyland at one point.
Yeah.
I was and like what is it called, Middle West? Yeah, that book was praised a lot.
Yeah, I've like almost picked up I Hate Fairyland so many times, but for some reason just haven't yet.
I'll probably get to it when I'm exiting university. At the moment, I got too many books really to read. I got like a whole library section now full of books that I promised myself I should get into. I just got the shipment from of the Snowpiercer comics, and so I have to like do that, and I haven't started on the anniversary edition of the Preacher.
Oh, the Preacher! It's so funny. I used to buy those issues like when they were originally running. So I have a bunch in my long box in my garage that I need to get new long boxes. So if you guys have any tips on like a good cardboard long box that doesn't cost like $90, please let me know.
Who's charging $90 for those?
It's ridiculous. Like, well, I think I saw like 60 for like 4, but I'm like $60 for a cardboard box seems a little pricey.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so if anybody knows a tip on like a good affordable comic book long box, let me know because I need to get 2 of them. Nothing big because, yeah.
My tip would be order any 2 or 3 things on Amazon that you already need and just tape your own boxes to make your own. A ton of my storage is just, I could probably make that work.
It's a good point. I could just buy like sheets of cardboard and like fold the thing myself or something.
Or you could start using plastic tubs.
Ooh, are they, is that what you do?
Yeah.
All right.
I do not recommend it unless you're like putting a few like drilled holes onto it, just like to get some air into them.
Good point, because otherwise it might get kind of damp in the.
Yeah, and I'm more like in favor of doing that in tubs instead of having them in long boxes or like in carton because of water damage.
That's a good point. I haven't looked in those long boxes in a long time either, so it's like possible all the comics in there are destroyed. Hopefully not.
there was like that one horror story that I read on I don't know where, but there was this guy in Florida who was living in in like one of those camping van houses, and he had a stack of comics in that like living area. The tree structure of the camper, and one day his mom got to the collection, and due to the humidity and the climate down there, it like flexes onto like upwards of 70 in humidity and stuff. And when he came back from the tour that he was on for about a better of like a year or two, he noticed that most of the comics they were just all molded and stuff now.
Well, you kind of had me convinced at Florida, because the second I think Florida and long box, I'm like, that would be a bad scenario. Like Florida is one of those areas where like it would be hard to have a guitar in your house with that climate, just because it's so damp and hot and humid. It's like, how do you really keep anything paper in your house in Florida? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
Giant swamp.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, just by speaking about it, I'm looking at my hydrometer above my library section because I measure the humidity.
Okay.
It bicked 44, so it's just like okay, but I like to keep it around like 35, 38. Where I got like my other comics collection, it usually bickers around 45 to 65, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be on 60. Stop that, no. But that's because it's on the seaside, that other collection, so I understand it. But at the same time, I'm like, I need bags, I need bags, I need I don't need cardboard, I need tubs, please.
I like it.
Because I'm freaking out that my big Sin City omnibus might get some warping or whatever.
You know what's insane? I have Sin City #1 signed by Frank Miller.
Lucky dog.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I have like a lot of comics that I should probably like get, because the time when I bought floppies was like a different era, so it's like I'd have to get them re-evaluated and all that stuff, you know, and like you have to get them in like that crazy package with like the new grading system and stuff.
Slab.
If I wanted to offload any of them. But I don't know if I'd want to offload any of them. It's weird. It's like I definitely don't read them anymore. I mainly just access my graphic novels now, you know, even though I love floppies.
But isn't that sort of like the point that that is supposed to appreciate in value over time for your investment to your kid's college tuition?
Yeah, but then like most of my comics were also bought like right at the peak of that being exploited and destroyed. So it's like a lot of those comics have no value. Like I think I have Spawn #1 signed by. It's the first edition. It's like in a sealed case signed by Todd McFarlane, and it's probably. I probably wouldn't be able to sell it. I don't know. Because it's like, you know, it was at the time where it's like, this will be valuable, but there's like, I mean, I can't even imagine what the print run of Spawn #1 was. Sure.
I got a hot tip for you on that.
Yeah. What's that?
Sell it to the foreign markets with a high markup. Instead of focusing on like the comics collecting niche in the US, try to contact people that are beyond the border, so they might be interested. Like there might be some guys living in Siberia or at the very end of the world and probably want that copy of Spawn for their collection.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
There's that to take in.
All right,
just
Jake.
like
So
well,
take
I
advantage
now
of the
know someone
farmer.
in Norway who maybe you can help me sling my comics.
I actually do know a couple of guys that are interested in collecting too.
Nice. There we go.
I got this one guy who's running my LCS. He's addicted to collecting action comics that he occasionally sees in like cons and stuff. So yeah. Whenever you feel like you want to get some money down low, when you're being like a broke hungry artist, just contact me, man, and I'll hook you up.
I love it. Yeah, I gotta look through it. I have oh my gosh, I have a lot of really cool things. Like I need to look through them and rebag stuff because I have like, you know, Death the High Cost of Living signed by Chris Pichello and Neil Gaiman. And I think Neil Gaiman wrote "Don't Die" on it, which is kind of awesome. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of weird ones, you know. Definitely, if anybody's like a Liefeld fan, I met Liefeld like back in the day when the Wildstorm thing was going. Which is funny because in retrospect, like I hated Liefeld for a really long time, and I've come around on Liefeld, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. He was like 17. I couldn't draw like that when I was 17.
Right.
It's like if I was 17, I wasn't drawing well enough to be in a Levi's commercial, you know. So it's like,
Yeah, he was 17 and working for Marvel. So
yeah, and honestly, like, I don't know, I kind of like him. I think also it was like the Shatner thing where it's like just he's kind of gone forward and owned it. Like I saw this video on YouTube where somebody was trying to kind of own Liefeld by having him sign like a picture of a pocket. He asked him to draw him like a bunch of pockets. And I think he was doing it to get a reaction, and Liefeld just did it and then was like, thanks for meeting me. And the guy just kind of had this like total, like he was going in like, we're going to own Liefeld. And then he kind of walked out of there like, I don't know, he was kind of nice. Which to me, I'm like, that's kind of cool too. It's hard to dislike that, you know.
I also think he created a character that was made completely out of pouches.
yeah. Called the pouch.
Yeah. So he's just leaned into it, and I think like that makes me like him too. Because if you have a sense of humor about yourself, that can help, you know.
Yeah. Well, that and he's argued. He's like, everybody makes fun of me for that, but like look at people, you know, that are like going to go breach a building on a SWAT team. He's like, they're covered in pouches. Like what else am I supposed to put on there?
That is true. I mean, really, the absurdity is just the pouches that our law enforcement all wear.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. He was interesting. I've heard of a few artists that kind of had some run-ins with him. But I mean, I think if you were like independently wealthy before you were able to drink, that's gonna mess you up. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Well, and like the wealth that group of artists was dealing with was not a normal comic experience, nor will it be in the future, you know. So I think, I don't know. Like I said, I give them a pass. Although I did hear some really crazy stories as a kid when they toured. Apparently, some of them weren't so wonderful with with some of the people they came and signed comics for. So, but even those kind of stories, it's always hard to tell because it's like, if you've conventioned, you know how exhausting it is just doing like a day at a convention.
Right.
And if you imagine that you're on your like 10th convention and it's like day 4 and maybe like some jerk came by and asked you to draw pouches for them and you had a really good attitude and stuff. And then it's like just the stars align where like somebody approaches you and you're not in the right mood, and then they're going to walk away with like a horror story about how like, I thought this guy was like a good artist and now I think they're a jerk, you know. Which is something I try to keep in mind when I do conventions, because it's like you have to remember that like every single person you meet is like going to have a story about like when they met an artist, and if you're a jerk, like that's going to be the story that rotates around our tiny little industry, you know.
Right.
Well, it's more like the story of you, and how much people want to like push that to become like a narrative in order to make you to be out like a bad person. But the thing is that what we talked about earlier is that truth has many perspectives. So there is no one agreed upon way of interpreting one person's action or one person's attitude. It's more or less sort of like a cobbled up mix that only the person that it's about really knows the situation of. But yeah, you should be professional and treat customers as they were your friends, so that you won't like go on about and offend them and all that. Definitely.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's also a good piece of advice for like people going to conventions too, is just remember it's a really tiny little industry. So it's like, you know, even the Liefeld thing, like if you go around just being like, Rob Liefeld sucks, it's like there's a chance you might be talking to one of his friends, you know, when you're saying that. So it's like, you know, it's, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. Oh man, so how did the hangout thing go, Corey? Go okay?
It was good, man.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, you know, with 5 people, you don't get to hit too many different topics, so you know, we kind of scratched the surface of stuff. And there was several of those guys I just wanted to listen to them talk forever, but not everybody had a ton of time. So, but anyway,
yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, one of the guys there is directed shows for The Simpsons and Rick and Morty and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So they've all got animated short films of some form or another. So yeah, it was interesting.
There was a show. I liked it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying it was a good show. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm always like, I always enjoy stuff like that, but like I'm in it. I always wonder what it's like for the people that are just watching. So you liked it, Frank?
Yeah. I was taking mental notes the way Jim was also running the show.
Yeah.
How he had like, oh, this is how we're gonna introduce people, like, and everyone says something. Okay, now we're gonna ask something. Everyone says something. So
yeah,
that's something with my show. I'm still trying to figure out like, should I introduce the guest first? Should I introduce myself first? Should I introduce Anna, or should we try to let the guest talk? Should I?
Hosting a live stream is, if you do it right, it's almost imperceptible. If you do it wrong, man, you have dead air and it's kind of awkward. Nobody knows when when they should talk or what they should say. Like a good interviewer, like Larry King. Everybody always makes fun of Larry King because he asks like really obvious questions.
Mm-hmm.
But like that guy interviews so well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, he knows his stuff, and the questions are really obvious because he's asking the questions that everybody else wants to know. You know, it's like, oh, that's the question I would have wanted to ask.
You know, it's interesting too because it's like I've done a couple bits for different, you know, like to promote my book, and one of the best ones I was on, which is the Read, Live, Learn podcast, and the guy is John Monaster. But what he did that I just thought was amazing was he just like really reads the book, and then like like is like so I don't know, it left an impression on me. I realized like I may not even be able to interview to the extent that guy did because he's just like really in tune with the book. And so like everything he asks is about the book and about the plot and about the writer, like their thoughts regarding the book. And it's really interesting, but it kind of ties into what you're saying where like somebody might listen to it and be like, well, it's just asking really obvious questions. But it's interesting because every time I listen to him and even being interviewed by him and then just listening to people interviewed by him, they always compliment him like as being just this great interviewer, and he barely talks, you know, which I think is also a strength, which I will not be having anytime soon because I talk a lot.
You want the secret?
What's the secret?
Oh, you got to pay me for that. I can sell you. I can sell the secret for being a great interviewer. It is. It's sort of like touching upon it's invisibly like present in the way that we've been talking about, that you guys have been talking about it. Mm-hmm. But being a good interviewer is not only to familiarize but the work, but make it so that the person who is being interviewed gets to speak for the majority of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is sort of like making you aim the most obvious questions, mm-hmm. or the most like broad catch-all kind of like questions, so that mm-hmm. you can so that you steer the conversation more like smoothly or with a grace in a sense, so that you don't deviate into or derail in a sense off the topics. And the way that you do that is just to make the person just talk. Make them feel like you've been friends with them for like forever, mm-hmm. and come in with just like, not to make it monotonous. Come in a couple of times and try to spice up the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, I think Marin is really good at that too. You know, like Mark Marin, and I know like, you know, because this podcast is so huge, like people like to kind of disparage him and stuff, but I think he's really good at kind of getting to the heart of like some emotional things with people on his show. And a lot of it is just asking really clued in questions. Mm-hmm. But definitely a weakness of mine, because, you know, I tend to talk quite a bit. So the topic is, no, I'm just kidding. So we're talking about interviewing, and we've heard from Corey, we've heard from Jake. What is your thought about being a good interviewer, Frank?
Well, like Jake was saying, from what my experience is, when the guest is able to talk freely, I think it's good. I just try to interject here and there, just so, like, you know, if I need to steer the conversation, or if they're talking too much about one thing, like, well, let's talk about this and let's talk about that.
Structure really helps too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Timed structure.
Yeah, like I think for any show, because it's like, you know, like this thing, you know, is like an art hangout. So it's like there is no structure, and like, but when we do the indie review show, it's like one of the most helpful things for us is like, we have like a time limit we're trying to hit. We have like certain questions we're trying to hit. and we have like an opening bit and a closing bit and that kind of thing. With Artcasters, it's kind of a mix, but I think because it's kind of a casual conversation, there still is a bit of a structure, though. We definitely know the structure of the beginning bit, structure of the end. We know like a rough idea of the topic we're going to hit. And then Scott will kind of keep us on track. If Corey's on there, he'll definitely keep us on track. If I'm on there, I'll derail it. And that's pretty much our structure,
If by on track you mean that it goes almost 2 hours, then that's what I do when I'm on that.
Well, because Corey and I like meandering about wildly crazy topics.
But Ninja Turtles, like last time.
Ninja tortoises, yeah.
That's true. That is true about the tortoises, though. It's funny. My wife is really bothered by, as bothered as you are by the Ninja Turtles not being Ninja tortoises. She gets that way every time my son wants to read or watch Curious George. She's just like, he's not a monkey. He's not a freaking monkey. She's just freaks out about it. It's really funny. But it's true. She's accurate to be freaked out by it because he isn't a monkey. So, yeah.
What is he?
I don't know. He's definitely a primate, but he has no tail. So, and then the way he walks too, it's like
waddly.
Mm-hmm. So he's probably like an ape or a baboon. No, he's not a baboon.
Baboons got tails.
Yeah. So it's probably what would he be?
Well, he would be an ape, but I don't know what kind of ape.
He would be a Mandela effect.
Sorry, that was
you brought up the tail.
Mandela effect. You
brought up the tail thing. People have been swearing that they've seen Curious George being represented with a tail. So yeah, he joined with the Bearstein family on that one.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a great ape, Chris.
Ronnie's heading off to work. Have a good day at work, Ronnie. I hope we prepped you for a good day. Yeah, he was still here up to a minute ago. I think he's now off to the races to earn the Kizash flow. That was terrible.
Are you trying to get in with the young?
Well, Jim is having me do the voice of like a cool hip pastor, so I'm just trying to learn the lingo of a cool hip pastor. I could imagine the cool hip pastor saying Kizash flow.
I'm gonna send you a clip, okay? Do not play it on stream, okay?
Oh, of course.
Wait, post, okay?
It will be one of those after the stream kind of things. I am about 2/3 through my page. How are you guys doing on progress? Corey, how's your game coming along?
I've played several games. I've won half of them. So yeah.
All right, I love it. That's cool.
I'm gonna stop doing this soon and go do the other things I need to do.
I'm doing these. It's so weird to go from these very narrative illustrations to doing these infographic style pages. It's like disconcerting because it's like when I'm doing the very literal sequential pages, I miss being able to do these infographic pages. The second I'm doing the infographic style pages, I'm like, I want to get back to the narrative pages. It's weird. It's a grass is greener thing. It's like when you're doing a bunch of faces, you're like, I just want to draw backgrounds. And then you're drawing backgrounds. And you're like, I want to draw faces. It's never ending.
Downward spiral.
The internet says he's a Barbary macaque. And macaque. Macaque. That's. Do not repeat that.
Hey.
Oh. All right. So, Frank, how are you doing? Have you knocked out another page yet? I'm teasing, by the way, by saying knocked out another page because I'm not even close to a page through. You set up what?
I set up the double page spread. So I have it already set up here on the computer. I use Scott Cirkworks or Scott Cirkland's the template from the Comic Maker Toolkit, which you can get on cirkworks.com. So that came in handy because I was like, how am I going to do the double page spread? Like, oh, wait, I have a template. So I'm just setting it up so I can do it tomorrow or later today.
Nice.
Because if I start now, I'll be up all day, all night.
Nice. What about you, Jake? Have you knocked out any more pages of the monster amount of pages you have to get executed?
Yeah, I got one close to be finished right now.
That's not too bad. Not too bad at all.
And it was just like after joining now the second time that I made it too. So yeah.
Very
But I'm using style to cheat my way through it.
Style to cheat your way through it is
I'm accessing all kind of like shortcuts right now in my brain, just like to try to hammer it out. I have like this one panel on the first page that I couldn't for the life of me try to figure out how I'm gonna like plug in, and I just thought, Hellboy, negative spacing, black silhouette, yeah.
When in doubt, block it out.
Yep. So yeah, but I'm just giving too much service to those like 2 pages that I have spent the majority of time to like draw, without having to do the due diligence of doing the pencils. I think it's I think it's good.
nice.
No complaints here.
That is not bad. Frank, we were kind of asking the question of what happened to Jeff Lafferty, and I believe we're going to have him on the next Artcasters. So we will be able to find out what Jeff has been up to. I reached out to him because I'm like, I miss hanging out with the guy, I miss talking to him, and
yeah.
So.
I know in the Artcasters Facebook group, someone asked, and I've been wondering too, and I asked some of the guys there. Gabe just uploaded a video saying what he's been doing.
Oh, nice.
So that's cool. But also, I noticed that he's not on Facebook, so I don't know if he got banned or something because I can't find him on there. And I know Facebook has been doing weird things. Even me, sometimes I can't see my posts when I post them. I can see people reacting to them, but I can't see them until like 3 days later.
Are you posting like weird disinformation, Frank?
Not this time.
Okay. I was just asking.
No, I'm just posting like, this is what I'm doing. Check out the Turaco Creative, because they might think I'm a spammer because I'm posting like in like 3-4 groups. Check this out, check this out, check this out. So it might be coming up that I'm spamming people.
I kind of think that Facebook, though, like they changed the layout because it is really hard to see your own feed, like at certain points, the way it's structured. I don't know if that's intentional to just make you have to go through like a rabbit hole to find your own posts. I don't know. Corey, what do you think about that? Do you think that's social media I think programming us for the future
Facebook
apocalypse?
is a giant mess that has gotten so big that good design is out the window. There's no way that they can do anything that makes any sense at this point. They're just too big, and they're trying to do too many different things. And the ball is moving for them because they really were all about. I can't remember what they were going to go. Oh, they were going all in on VR, and then no one cared, right? They bought Oculus Rift and everything, and so then the next big announcement was we're going all in on groups, and so like. I just think they're flailing to try to stay relevant. The only reason that they still are relevant is because the internet hasn't completely collapsed on itself with the ad market yet, which it will soon.
Oh, what made you say that?
Oh, because I just think the EU, Australia, California, and or New York are just going to make the level of data that they're collecting just illegal. And I think
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. With
And
the
if that happens, then audience segmentation in the current structure is going to implode, and then there's no reason to place a digital ad with no audience segmentation. So I think that there's just going to be a renaissance of the internet. We'll finally get Web 3.0 since we've stagnated in Web 2.0 for like 20 years.
yeah, I think the key point to look into that whole collapse would be to see where the development or future legalization of cookies are heading forwards. So
Right. And have you heard of like super cookies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're starting to do some shady crap.
mhm.
Wait, super cookies, is this like a Cookie Monster kind of thing, or?
You know the really big cookies that they cover in ice cream?
Mm.
No, so a
Make
cookie
me
is just, it's a little thing that tracks you, right?
Oh, like
Yeah.
internet cookies. Okay, sorry. I thought
Right.
this was
But
going to be
but a
about.
super cookie, it uses the ICO, the ICO, the little tiny image on every website, like in the tab. It's usually like a tab version.
Got it.
What they're doing is they have 3 to 16 different versions of that, and they're running you through a bunch of redirected pages so that it loads and it can tell whether you've been there or not been there before. Anyway, the pattern of yes or no basically becomes a unique identifier that they can collect even though you have privacy stuff, because it's loading an image. Like when you go to the internet, you're downloading images and text files. Like that's what the internet is. And so if the computer can tell that you have loaded that or not, if it's in your cache basically, then they can basically track you if they redirect you enough.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
anyway,
dark.
yeah, that's one more reason why I like the Brave project right now is.
You on the Brave?
Oh yeah, I'm a Brave creator, certified creator.
Wow, I didn't know that. I need to pay more attention. Sorry.
Oh no, I haven't really talked about it that much. I'm still trying to figure it all out. I just barely got verified last week, so.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm trying to shift from Firefox to Brave, but I haven't made the jump yet.
Yeah, it's great. I like it. I'd keep a browser that isn't Brave installed on your phone and your desktop while they're kind of working out the kinks, because I still jump over to Chrome or Firefox occasionally.
Okay.
But it's awesome.
And then Brave just sort of gives you like credits or something for like searches, or?
Yeah, so Brave deals in something called the basic attention token. And it's a cryptocurrency, which has its own problems, like it's destroying the environment, right? So it's a lateral move, but it's a move towards privacy, but they still have to work out not destroying the environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, basic attention token, it's one of the more volatile tokens right now, but like I bought some BAT at like 49 cents, and it's at like it's been hovering around 80 for like a week. So I turned $50 into $78. So and then as you search and as you use the internet, you are accruing very slowly. You're accruing basic attention tokens, and you can set your Brave browser to allocate or tip, they call it, the creators based on your time on their site. And so it's going to like tip, the Twitter people that you're interacting with and the YouTube people that you're interacting with, or you can choose to retain it, and then tip whoever you want. So it's interesting, I got an 83-cent tip the other day, which was one Brave token. So I mean, but
It's interesting. I am curious to try it out. I did read that article, and then it's funny. Right after you sent me that article about the art that was selling or whatever,
The NFTs.
Yeah.
so-
what's your opinion on
Yeah.
that, Corey? The NFT.
Yeah, I was gonna-
I think it's the same as well. You'd be close to this, right? The tulip market, the first real speculative market. I think it's tulip bulbs right now.
yeah.
Same.
I'm really curious about it in the sense of like, I mean, it definitely seems like a market that will crash very bad because I don't think it has potential to grow. But if you're one of the people who can kind of get in on it and sell like JPEGs for it while it's like a thing, like, hey, why not? Like, make some money while you can before it crashes.
Yeah, the real downside though is to run blockchain, you are literally burning energy.
Yes.
And so that's a big problem. The other thing is, anytime people get wildly speculative, you're going to have people make a ton of money, and most people lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the sensational nature of it is, the newsworthiness is the rags to riches stories, and so that kind of further fuels the fire. But anyway, I do think that there's some options. I think this is probably in the article. I think if we could have, NFTs that had stuff that went with it, like some sort of actual added value rather than, because like if you buy a tweet, right? You don't own the rights to that tweet. You own the digital representation of that tweet, but you don't own the words. You don't own the thought. And that person can delete the tweet. So really, you don't own anything.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing about that whole thing, like the Sotheby's auction too, where it's like this guy like recently sold his whole collection. They had like a really good Planet Money episode about it recently. I was just like, I just couldn't believe exactly what you're talking about, where it's like people are buying to own something that they don't even own because they don't own the copyright. They don't own the rights to the image. Yeah. They just own like they have their name. It's I guess like equivalent to having like a plaque at a museum with your name under it, like saying like, hey, this is my art shown at the Getty or whatever.
I think if there's some status, because status can be valuable.
Mm-hmm.
If there's some status that they could do with it, like if we had some sort of curation of the owners of different things, then that could be something. But right now, there's no utility to it.
Yeah, it seems a little strange.
I mean, I want to bring up an example it's sort of like foreign, but there's like this one certain image board that I'm on, and way back there was someone that proposed that just the act of making a post and declaring it being a form of art makes it in value an art or an art piece. And the way that they sort of made that point even furthered was that they created a copy with like a certain dimension to it and printed it out and framed it and sold it on eBay for an obscene amount of money. And now it became like a limited commodity. It became a piece that materialized, but to what it challenges the whole perception of what art is in this way. For like the Nifty market, or like the Nifty art market, the reproducibility of these art pieces doesn't necessarily feed into my it doesn't make me understand like what's their proper value when you can just replicate these gifts and all that stuff in a way that it makes for like an attractive thing. Like way back there was this like the whole meme thing about rare Pepes, Pepe the Frog, and how people were creating collectibles of rare images of that character. and selling these things now on as a Nifty. Wouldn't it just like be an act of if people were to like ruin the point of it being rare as a commodity, just by duplicating it and distributing it for free after having purchased it, just like do not care about gas at all, do not care about the market, and just like endlessly recreate that art piece. There's just like weird things that it just exists without having to like touch upon the whole environment talk of it. And I've been following that whole like art debate too when it came to the ethics of minting and the environment. And a lot of people seem to be in like this gray zone that cannot like that can't like make up their mind whether it's healthy or unhealthy for the society, like not for society but for the environment to do so. But I haven't like found a way to be convinced by either or other.
Well, it's
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is you've got any time that there's speculation, and you need a way to get that valuable limited asset. It's gonna have a cost, and right now that cost is energy, and heat. And so I mean, you've got people that are filling up apartments full of laptops with high-end video cards so that they can mine blockchain, and that has a cost, because without the blockchain, there wouldn't be an apartment, full of 200 laptops trying to mine blockchain. And so that's
again, and this is that cost comparison thing too. It's like, would they have that many monitors just with automated tracking of the stock market? Because I mean, if you go to like a stock trader's office, like they don't have one computer running. They have like, I mean, I don't think it requires the processing power, but still,
right. And that's the difference, is that they're overclocking the computers and running them hot so that they can get more processing power out of them. So it's not just watching a website on a monitor. It is doing a very labor-intensive mathematical equation on the video card.
That is actually fairly true. I've heard of this, and this might be my ignorance of like Norway, but I've actually heard one of the bigger data mining buildings is in Norway because of the cold climate. Like they can have it like it costs less for them to like cool the building. But I don't know if that was just my lack of knowledge about Norway and I'm just grouping it with another country.
I don't know. It's sort of like it sounds like the seed bank in Svalbard. To be honest, that's an entire different thing. Because there's like a bank of plant seeds stored up in Svalbard, which is governed by Norway. But every like nation has contributed some kind of like plant seed to be stored as a deposit up there in case of something going awry. Back to like the whole the cost. It doesn't take into the factor of having to buying or like stressing the electrical usage. It doesn't take into account for like if you want an air condition or like a fan installed into the room to moderate temperature. It doesn't take to effect to like the account of producing these cards too, because there's a lot of minerals and a lot of elements that has to be put into these cards into producing them and manufacturing them. And manufacturing has been strained now thanks to Corona. And scalpers who are buying an obscene amount and just storing these cards, which forces the companies to go out and order more so that they will have to produce more. But they can't produce in stock or keep that in stock because of the demand in the market is too much. Not only for like the miners, but also those that want to just get a gaming graphics card. So it meets multiple markets, or hit multiple markets where the demand is over exceeding the product output of these factories. And it's like an invisible kind of thing. Whereas it's not only doing like the process, but it's also what precedes the process, where people are setting up their little mining operation in their bedrooms.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
I'm
anyway,
fascinated by it. I'm curious to see what happens. I don't do stocks, so I mean, I might at some point in my life, but as of now, like my kind of take on it is, it's like my goal with money is just to stay out of debt and like not engage in gambling, and it feels like gambling. But I did think about like how if it were to actually take off, that would be really cool for people who actually produce stuff that memed, because it's really hard to commoditize. Like I've had like 3 t-shirt designs that you could literally look on any website and they become like a meme.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never, like, other than t-shirt sales, like, which continue, but it's like, you know, you're not making like mass amounts of money on these sites that are getting mass traffic off, you know, those images, like more traffic than I can generate for them. So it is an interesting thing in that sense, where I was like, should I set up one of those and like sell those? Because and then the weird thing is, how does it even work? Like, are you selling the copyright to it?
nope.
No.
That's weird.
Yeah, you
Because,
retain
like,
all of the rights except for the right to claim digital ownership online. You can still display it, you can still whatever, but the non-fungible token, or whatever the thing is owned by someone that isn't you. But everything else is still yours as the creator of the thing.
And they can't tell somebody to take it off their site because they own it or anything, because it's not copyright.
Right. I think you still own all of the display.
So what's to prevent somebody from taking my art and then creating an NFT of my art?
Oh, I'm sure that's the next thing. Adobe is trying to. They announced this last Adobe Max that they're and who knows how far along they are with this, but they are trying to come up with tracking stuff, you know, so that you would be able to. They'd find the original creator of the image, and then that metadata would be locked with the image, and then tracked in a database, you know, of who created what originally. And so if that were the case, then people eventually, we could see an internet where even if somebody made a copy of an image and put it on their site or whatever, that copy of the image would still retain, you know, this was made by Joshua Kemble.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I don't know. I just find it interesting because I'm like, I could potentially try to make some money off that, you know.
Yeah.
But the downside is, you know, you'd feel kind of bad for the people who spent, you know, because what I heard about the transactions was that the artist of the thing gets a cut every time it's traded.
Right.
So it's like, if, let's say I buy the NFT of like Corey's fish GIF or whatever. I don't know if you could do that with an animated GIF, but if you could, that'd be cool. So I buy the NFT of that, and then I sell it for like $10. I bought it for $5. Not that it's going to sell for $5, but that's, you know, hypothetical. And you get like 30%, and then eventually it's selling for like millions. It's like you're still getting 30% or whatever of that transaction. It's pretty interesting. I don't know. It seems worth exploring, but I don't know. I also am not internet savvy enough to probably get into that, you know.
So the challenge is, you know, everybody's promoting the thing, but like I have original pages that are on paper, you know.
Yeah.
And I have purchased original pages on paper.
Yeah.
Once I purchase that page, I can resell it. I own it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't own the rights of reproduction, but I own the actual page.
Yeah.
And the artist doesn't get a cut if I sell it.
Yeah.
But I can't sell any of my own pages because I don't have the audience for it. I don't have anybody that's interested in paying what I think I would be willing to part with it for.
Yeah.
And so, like that's the problem is if I had to register those pages for the potential to sell them, which is what's going on with the NFTs right now, I would lose money.
Oh, so you have to pay to register.
Yeah, it's called gas.
Yeah, so you have to.
Oh, okay. So then it definitely sounds a little scammy.
It is for sure. But it's it's an interesting thing, and it's working out for some people. So
that's fascinating.
If you've got one or two really popular images, I don't know how much it is. Do you know how much it is, Jake?
Like for the really attractive ones, you have between 0.6 Ethereum to 2.6 Ethereum.
And how do they judge that?
I guess it's up to the amount of quantity that you want to put out to the market, and it's also sort of like like the economy solves itself in a way. So everybody's pricing what everyone feels like it's worth. If you go to Rarible, I think that's sort of like one of those marketplaces that sells or pushes Nifty, like very hot right now. You'll have to go onto that site and you have to do some competitive scouting in order to like assess what type of like price you want to put. I noticed that there's like this one guy on Rarible that sells like virtual gifts or posters of like Hot Wheels based on IPs like Breaking Bad and stuff, like the camper van. And I think that he sold that one from either like 0.7 to 1.5 Ethereum.
Wow. Ethereum right now it's up over 1,000, right?
Mm-hmm. 1,050 last time I checked it, like 5 days ago. It might have dropped.
But how much does it cost to mint that for sale? Is that the right term?
No. I'm a little bit lost on like the whole like terminology thing. I know the basic investments of it and how to like get it. So the way that you want to do is like you create your ledger for your blockchain. That would be like your wallet, and then you pay up front by investing into the economy. By like you have to pay gas, right? So gas,
and that's purchased through Ethereum.
Yeah, so people either choose like Bitcoin or Ethereum to pay to invest in. So they have to like buy a certain amount of gas. It will be sort of like it will be your tax whenever you're like minting. And so don't take my word for it. Do your own research. That's a disclaimer, okay? So you have to like start somewhere with your business incentive. So your risk will have to be put into like you had to put in $100 to $150 from what I hear. So we'll probably go for about 1,000 if they feel so daring, and just like to make that transfer from dollar to BTS or to Ethereum or Dogecoin if you're that wild, if you're Wall Street bets type of guy or gal. And then you set up then you set up a page on Rarible, for instance. It's one of 3 sites that you can sell NTFs, and those non-fungible tokens will then it will be sold by having like a page up set up, so your name and tag different informations about like dimensions of the GIFs or the PNGs or JPEGs or whatever. And then you plug in the number of what you feel like it's worth, and then you that will be like and that adds onto like the tax for it. So it'll sort of, I think that the minting process is like it sucks something from you as like a risk incentive, and then you sell it out for like a limited amount. So you could have 1 copy or 50 copies of one product.
That is fascinating, but definitely like outside of my wheelhouse of expertise. It's probably definitely something I wouldn't dip into, but I'm very risk averse. So
Yeah. So like, I like this technology,
yeah,
but I don't like it the way that it's handled and the way that everyone is like going for like what Corey said about the tulips craze. I want it to be like a stable market, but that won't be happening until like 7 years probably at max.
It'll stabilize after the bubble bursts and people lose their shirt and people can pay off their mortgage. But
until then, but I want to, as I mentioned on the stream yesterday or the day before, that I wanted to invest comics as a way to like to pay crypto, sort of for comics or PDFs. Leave that as an option. And wanting to look into like NTF technology in a couple of years would probably be attractive to sell rare commodities of some comics that might be a little bit on the riskier side, or just like innocent comics, but you want to make it a rare instance in a sense, because everybody's scrambling right now, probably perhaps because they want to be partaking in some kind of history regarding to this thing. So they might see it as a as like an you can thing.
I just think that's I also think it's really neat that that was a kind of thing on our minds, and that just by happenstance, Jake, you were on this stream to kind of talk us through that, because it's a lot more than I was aware of it. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm also the guy who, like, when Bitcoin was like going around at like probably $1 a share or something ridiculously low. I think it was lower than $1. And I had a couple of friends who were like, you should get in on this. And I was like, no, never. And then they are doing pretty well now. So it's like, quite a few of them have sold and now are even kicking themselves for selling. But I haven't met a person who invested at that point that are like kicking themselves. So
it is not as bad as the one story that I got. I had a classmate of mine in high school, and he had been passed off like this huge amount of Bitcoin. But this was like before the 2013, 2014 skyrocket, the moon kind of thing. And estimated he would be sitting on at least $30,000 to $50,000 if he was like lucky. And for that, converted to Norwegian kroner, that would be like $500,000 for us. And that would be paying off the student debt if he were to like go to university, so he could just ride. He had he had a chance to like ride the university without having to pay any debt. So the only thing that stopped him was that he forgot the password.
Oh no!
So he literally screwed himself over by not securing his future.
Oh, that's so sad.
There's quite a bit. That's a huge problem with cryptocurrency. I heard a statistic. I can't remember what it is, but I'm looking it up.
Well, you kind of can't recover the password, right? So
no. And if you enter the password incorrectly too many times, it's blocked, it's bricked, and it's done.
Game over, man. Game over.
Wow.
Oh, so someone can enter a password on your account purposely wrong and then block you out?
Well, that's a good question. Can that happen?
I don't know. So MSNBC is claiming, MSN is claiming that there are roughly $140 billion in Bitcoin that are inaccessible because of that, or inaccessible.
That's rough.
So, that's a lot of money. 20% of all Bitcoin is lost and unrecoverable.
Wow. Very impressive. I don't know. Crypto is interesting to me. Once again, my risk aversion is just like I cannot speculate with. My gamble is spending a bunch of my time on something unprofitable like Autobio comics. That's my big gamble, and the reason I don't mind that gamble is the result is pretty predictable.
So, like, the thing that I'm wondering if crypto is going to be like the biggest thing in the 21st century, later down the line, of course, would it be up to the ATF or would it be to the IRS to do the federal runnings of that? Because they will have to have some kind of like crime division or something to attach it to. Given that we're still like working around the laws and stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, I wonder if it would be something completely different, because what you're seeing happen right now is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. But like, it's the democratization of currency. You know, you're wresting the control of currency away from governments and putting it into the hands of the people. And then at the same time, you have giant tech corporations that are doing the same. And so, I mean, at some point in time, it would not be unheard of to imagine a situation where Google or Facebook or Apple, was a member of the UN. And they have their own currency, they have their own citizenship, they have their own, whatever. I mean, people could be dual citizens of a tech company in a country. And they could technically go to war. I mean, you've got Amazon building, we haven't heard about it recently, but like Amazon has the technology to deliver packages safely with drones.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't hit the news in several years. But like, it's not that different to like put some sort of weapon on that drone, So I
love it, Corey. I love it.
I love guns and drones too.
I'm not even trashing it. It's just like I love the dystopian projections, and probably a lot of them are correct, but it's fun to hear the dystopian Corey future. Which, by the way, Corey, if somebody were interested in checking out dystopian future as animation, what would they want to check out on your channel?
Go to EndoXO. I've got the EndoXO is, when I wrote it, I thought, oh, this would be a fun story. And now I'm like, I don't even know if I want to tell this story anymore because it's too real. But it's basically that there were a bunch of artificial intelligence by Silicon Valley people, right? And then there was this consumption war where the AI started attacking, breaking through firewalls, and then consuming and absorbing other AI until there's 4 AI left. And during that process, they were also creating wearable tech. And so basically a quarter of the human race belongs to one of these 4 companies, right? So they basically split up all the humans, and you've got these addicted zombie people that are being given everything that they want, because you can get an implant that gives you the dopamine and serotonin, tied directly into your like neurological feed. You've got the biometric feedback that they're giving through the watches and the glasses and all that stuff. And so the story starts right after that with a small group of analog rebels that are using like pre-1987 tech to try to take down these AI. So that's the opening scroll of that.
And I wanted to reassure you also, Corey, that Chris said he doesn't think your predictions are far off, nor do I.
That's not reassuring because both of you are really smart people. I want to be wrong.
I want you to be wrong too, but I also tend to get very dark with what I assume will happen with society, and then I also tend to be an optimist and then get really freaked out when I'm right about things. So, like, case in point, like the recent insurrection in the U.S. It's like I literally saw that coming like 3 months before, and I was like, nah, that's not going to happen. That actually won't happen. And then it's like 2 months before, no, I mean, it seems like it'll happen, but that's not going to happen. And then it happened. So, those things can happen. It's kind of weird when it's not fun to be right when you have pessimistic outlook.
No, I would really like to be wrong about everything that I just said.
It's possible, though.
It took me a long time to do this. And as I'm doing it, I'll have written something, 2 months ago, and then I see that thing in the news, and I'm like, oh, cool. I was hoping that was going to happen. But
doesn't it feel good, though?
No. Because I'm not predicting a pleasant future.
Yeah, there's certain things you want to be wrong about. Like, it's to me, like, one of the funniest things was I was at work researching some stuff on my work computer, which is not at all connected to my home computer or my phone. And it was like researching photos, and it's not like I'm signed on my browser or anything like that. Researching photos of like a certain location that we're doing products for at my day job.
Yeah. On
my drive home, I just noticed on my Facebook feed like 10 ads for that thing, and I was like, "What?" It's so obnoxious. Another time too at work, I was talking about why I like the flavor of like orange candy, like generic fake orange, like Starburst and stuff. I was like, I think it's tied into like baby aspirin. And it was like that same day, like my phone's giving me ads for baby aspirin. I was like, the hell is going on? I mean, I know what's going on because I've read the book that Corey recommended I read, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. And the more I've read about it and read articles about it and stuff, I know my phone is bugging me, but it still is shocking when you find out that it actually is listening to every word you say and plugging it into an algorithm. It's a little disturbing.
We haven't we haven't made like an announcement that we're pregnant or whatever, like we haven't done like the big reveal or, lit a forest on fire in California or something, but like we're not like hiding it. But I have seen nursing ads for like weeks now. Like as my wife is approaching giving birth, I'm starting to get targeted, and I can guarantee that has nothing to do with any search data that I have done. I'm not searching baby names. I'm not searching, anything. And yet they're like, they know I'm connected. They know that there is a life-changing event that's happening soon, and they're selling that information to the advertisers.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if Chris or others that are having that same experience, or if it's just me, because it's bizarre. Because I'm looking through my search history, and I'm using a privacy browser. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's nothing in mine. In my wife's, there's probably a ton. But anyway, yeah, it's the thing that bugs me about it is that we become so horrific encroachment of our privacy becomes so normalized so quickly. Like I did a sticker on this where it was like tentacles coming out of this portal in the ground, and the tentacles were holding a sign that said, "This is normal." My whole point with that sticker is like, if at some point like interdimensional beings started like teleporting through the streets of our cities and just grabbing cars and pulling them into another dimension, it would be horrifying for about a month.
Mm-hmm. And then it'll just be
and then it would be normal, and people would complain about it. and then there'd be laws passed, and there'd be like some sort of traffic direction mechanism of lights or cops or something or cones or something that would, and then it would just become part of our everyday.
You mean
thing.
like this?
Yeah, like the fact that we are. I was thinking about this exact thing, Frank. Like, it's just become normal to me that that I just put on a mask. I mean, in my county, they've like gotten rid of the mask mandate. It's now a suggestion, and I'm still wearing a mask because I'm not an idiot. But,
Thank you.
but I mean, as soon as it wasn't like a rule, I'm like the only person at the store in a mask.
Yeah, well, in like a month or so, if there's like a giant uptick, you might be the only person not in the ICU, though. So there's that.
Well, except the mask kind of protects those around you, not really you. So.
Yeah, that's the annoying part. If it only worked that way, where like the people who took the precautions didn't get it, and the people, it's anyhow. But yeah, it is weird what's become normal. Even if it's normal that it would be normalized, it is strange to live in a world where I think I noticed something shifted in me where it's like I went to get food, where I work, because I still have to go into work and stuff. And it's like the cashier coughed and then handed me a receipt, like right after like coughing into their hand.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm not really like a hugely paranoid person or like a person who's like freaked out by that kind of thing. And I visibly had to like look at the receipt, grab it from a side that I knew hadn't gotten any contact, kind of held it like at arm's length, like threw it away very quickly. And then when I got back to work, just washed my hands for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, like, and I was realizing like, that's so weird that's kind of normal now. Like I wouldn't have even blinked at that, like, prior.
Have you had this experience, Josh, where I'll be in a public place and somebody will cough and I am angry at them?
Yes.
Like I've never had that emotional reaction before. Like I'm immediately judging them in my mind about being a horrible person. And then I do it later, in a meeting or whatever. And I'm like, I'm masked up and everything. And, I bring several masks in case I cough or sneeze and I can, do the switch out or whatever. But then when I do it, I like immediately feel like huge amounts of guilt. And I feel like everyone is looking at me.
Mm-hmm. You're like looking around, like, did anyone see that? I hope. Right.
It is very strange.
Yeah. It's very weird. It's weird that that's normal. It's weird that, there's a lot of things that have been very normalized in the last, like pre-pandemic, after the pandemic, that aren't normal.
Yeah.
But might be, very shortly. I'm kind of like of the opinion, like I liked the Andrew Yang idea of like paying people for their data. Like to me, it's like, I think a lot of us would be way more accepting of a massive data intrusion if we actually got a piece of it.
Well, the real part of his plan that could do something, because that's the fun part to talk about. But the real part of the plan that I really liked was you make it cost the companies money, right? I mean, they are harvesting and mining a resource that benefits their business, and there's no other situation where you're allowed to do that for free.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so basically, if you just say it will cost you, then instead of just collecting everything that they possibly can because data is cheap, they will become more judicious because now there's a financial incentive to be more careful about what you collect. And that just will naturally curb the amount of data that they collect. I think Chris was saying this, I also think, and this is coming from, I wouldn't say I'm fairly conservative, but that's probably because I live in an extremely conservative area, so I feel a little more liberal. But I'm definitely to the right of center. And having an industry that is that powerful be completely unregulated blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't understand.
It's like I was watching the Avengers the other day, and the Sokovia Accord, when the guy's like, "Do you know where Banner is right now?" And they're like, "No." It's like, if I misplaced a 3-ton nuclear weapon, I would have to know where it is. Like, I'd have to go find it. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, we have these companies that have the power equivalent of like a nuclear arsenal, and no one has any idea what's going on. Like, no one's tracking it. No one understands it. They're intentionally subversive about the way that they are, they obscure and obfuscate. I can't say that.
Obfuscate.
Yeah, they intentionally like are altering the perception of what's going on in their company, and yet they have more money than many countries do, and it has been proven that they can change the way people think and the way people behave. And yet, we regulate neurotoxins, we regulate war, we regulate, if you can take a picture of someone or not, we regulate that type of thing. But we, like no one is allowed to take a picture of my kid who's super cute and then just use it in an advertisement. They're not allowed to do that. But tech companies are allowed to do all kinds of things like that because we don't understand what's going on. And we have people in power that don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, and then the disturbing thing, I think I told you a little bit of this, Corey, but it's like from a couple of friends I know that work in social media in Silicon Valley. I gather that I don't think the tech companies necessarily know what's going on because a lot of it is automated algorithms. So it's like, in a weird way, not to give them excuses, but it's like, I actually think it's like a monster they don't even fully understand.
Oh, do you know how frequently, and they've stopped reporting on this, do you know how frequently we used to read that like an AI would do something that the engineers didn't understand, so they had to kill it?
Yeah.
That was pretty often about 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's a pretty
like there were two, there's this thing that they do with AI where they take one AI and they take another AI and they tell one AI to try to learn how to lie to the other AI, and they tell the other AI to try to detect the lie. And so the one AI is getting really good at deception, and the other AI is trying to learn how to get really good at deception detection. And what actually happened in that scenario is that they invented their own language that no one understood, so they killed both of them because they're like, we don't even know what they're saying to each other anymore.
That's so great. I mean, it's great if you're like writing apocalyptic future stories because that should just end in like war games kind of scenario.
Except instead of playing a game of tic-tac-toe, they're just like, I'm just going to invent a completely new game that humans don't understand, and I'm going to play it with this other super AI. And by the way, we control like the electrical grid, the gas systems, the sewage systems. Like recently, there was a water system that was contaminated because somebody hacked into it and upped the amount of some chemical that was processing something, and then it just got dumped into
No. That wasn't the chemical process thing. It was naturally it's naturally implemented in water, in the water resource. So like a small dosage, you could drink in a small dosage. You can drink that. Sure. But if you were to adjust the percentage a little bit too high, that becomes toxic.
But it was the AI that was regulating it, right?
I think it was some kind of like operation board that got hacked into it, and then or it was like an attempt to hack the control room or like the control panel for it. So it's just regulated like a regular old panel. The culprit, I think, was human by using some kind of like AI tool to do it.
Yeah. So take the logical extreme of that situation, and one of the AI gets the idea, like Ultron did, that the world would be better off without people, and you could just like do that. You know, I mean, like, there's one of my favorite comics is Invincible. At one point in time, one of the characters in Invincible, one of the villains, is like, you know, we could have clean energy if we just had like a big enough area that could collect. And so he glassed Las Vegas, like glassed it, and then turned it into solar panels. And he killed tens of millions of people, and no one checked him on it because nobody. But the end result was kind of good. That all of a sudden they had like cleaner energy. But to get there, you took a computer that had no empathy and just offed families full of kids and moms and dads, and so it doesn't take. There's a reason that like the judicial system needs a jury, is because like laws and logic and programming, they govern on off. It's all binary.
So, so like, just to back up what Corey's saying too, like on a real world level, like, they're, you know, with automated cars, like programmers are having to deal with ethics programming,
Right.
and it's like, so, you know, the kind of questions you'd have to ask in like an ethics class, which, by the way, like, you know, for anybody who's taken like basic ethics, like, or intro to ethics, or like even philosophy 101, it's like the basic ethics questions where you're given like a moral quandary, like, you know, you're in a car, you see that a little kid has jumped in front of your path on the road, and to your left is like a group of elderly people who like, and it's your only way to swerve out of the way of hitting the child is to hit the elderly people, and you can't hit the brakes in time to avoid hitting one. Which do you hit? Like, that kind of thing is like the type of thing an ethics class just pours over. There's usually a very ambiguous and hard to answer quandary to it that like most people almost feel like making a moral decision in that is immoral, like to make an ethical decision at all. And yet like they're having to program that scenario into a self-driving car, like where it's like, what does the self-driving car do? Like prioritize youth? Like so this is actually happening like on a micro level already with self-driving cars. So,
and there's an
like,
interesting argument with self-driving cars, because I don't like the idea of self-driving cars because I don't like the idea of computers controlling things like that. But like one of the biggest killers in the US, at least, is automobile accidents.
yes.
And so if you can automate all driving, then you could significantly reduce
For sure.
killing a lot of people. But in doing that, you can, I mean, like, Josh, your commute would become a breeze.
Oh, dude, I would love to be able to just like sit back, chill, read a book. I mean, you know, the thing, there's always the argument. Have you guys seen the movie Singles? Like, it's like a Cameron Crowe movie from the 90s. It's very 90s.
What? I don't remember.
Anyhow, so there's this character in it who is all excited because he's making like a bullet train for Seattle, and like he's just really excited and just has drafted the plans, and he's going to get this pitch through. Every time he pitches it, it's like people are like, yeah, but people like their cars. And it gets shot down every time, like, yeah, but people like their cars. And he's like, no, like the board will see it differently. And then, of course, like when he pitches it to the board, that's what they say. It's like, but people like their cars. There is this mixed thing in California where we all hate commuting, but we also like, because the whole city and culture has been designed without public transit in mind, like we all tend to like the freedom to like get up and leave whenever we want and kind of have control, like the semblance of control you have, even though it leads to us sitting in traffic for hours on end, you know.
That is, it just tails back to like that good old human laziness.
Yeah.
Convenience.
Yeah. Totally.
How much do you want to sacrifice for convenience?
But see, to me, I've lived in like when I lived in Portland, it was unbelievable, the commuting system there. Like it's so nice. Like there's a bus every like 10 minutes. Like, so if you're downtown, like it just doesn't make sense to drive, you know? And then the cool thing is if you do drive downtown, it's like, you know, and keep in mind, this was like close to a decade ago. So I'm sure it's different now. It's probably terrible. But at the time, like you could drive on a Saturday at like peak, like, you know, travel hours in downtown Portland and like never be stopped on in your car except at a light. Like there just wasn't like immense amounts of traffic. That's unbelievable and cool and really nice. And the city was less polluted. So it's like the air was better. I do actually think having like a commuting based city is a smart idea, but it's hard to undo what is there. Like, you know, when the infrastructure of something is built around not having that, it's a hard thing to unwind and like try to rebuild, you know. But you're right, you do kind of lose some freedoms. I am all for self-driving cars, except for the implications that like I think Yang spelled out really well about it too, where it's just like because you know people can politically disagree with Andrew Yang. Not everybody's going to go the route of like believing in a UBI or anything like that, but it's like definitely like the automation concerns are pretty legitimate, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because like that is coming and automated cars are happening. And when it's automated trucks, you're going to have a real industry issue.
Oh no, that's already here.
Yeah.
So I mean, automated shipping. This is something that's fascinating. Is if you ask truckers,
yeah,
people involved in the trucking industry, how long until their jobs are replaced, they speak in terms of decades.
Mm-hmm.
And if my cousin is a programmer for an automated, it's a smart wheel, and so it grabs data from everything that a wheel would know, right? Which is a lot. And he's like, oh no, there are fully automated fleets of semi trucks right now. Mm-hmm. Like it's already here. It's like this slow thing, but like 25% of the male population of the US works in the trucking industry.
Yep.
So what happens when robots take their jobs?
They took our jobs.
They took our job. That's one of my favorite. It's funny. I just watched I don't get HBO, but I found, I guess they put the pandemic, the latest pandemic special on YouTube. So good.
Have you seen iRobot with Will Smith?
Yep. No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I've read it.
If you're gonna watch it, you have to have Will Smith next to you. That's how I watched it.
No. Oh, really? It's awesome.
No, it's the best experience. There's his character is so like anti-technology and anti-robots, because he was initially in the backstory. Spoilers if anyone hasn't seen it. He's a cop, but he was in an accident, in a car accident, and it went down in the lake, and also this other little girl. This robot came to save him, but the robot analyzed and calculated that he would be the one that would be able to survive. So the robot let the little girl live. So from then on, Will Smith had this hatred for robots because he calculated one life over the other, and he was telling the robot, save her, let me die, and the robot went with its programming and let the little girl die. So it goes into like this whole thing about he's anti-technology, but then this robot programmed to think, kind of like tries to bring balance. I don't know, but it's so interesting, but they never did anything with it. But yeah, but it's that whole thing that you were saying about like who would die, the who would you kill,
Mhm.
a child or an old lady, and that was pretty much in the movie where robots kind of were making that decision for you.
Yeah, I mean, you just imagine a bunch of automated train drivers and an automated track switch, and then you just instantly have an ethical dilemma that you couldn't even write fiction about. Like, it is just a literal version of like the classic ethical
The trolley
dilemmas.
problem.
Yeah, so it's just like, to me, that's really fascinating. Like, that we're getting there. I think there are broad implications, and I definitely think, like, societally, if people don't buy like the Yang version of things, regardless, we got to start thinking as a society how we're going to handle that issue, because it's coming. And it's like, I know there's also a little bit of like, people probably had similar postulations when like the horse and buggy were getting pushed out, and it's like, there's a lot of horse and buggy drivers, like, all these carriage drivers are going to be out of work, and that kind of happened, but kind of didn't, because things evolve and industry kind of progresses. So I know there's a bit of that, but this is on a scale that's a little different.
Well, progress is recycling destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
also like my favorite punk rock band's name. So I'm just kidding, but if there is a band named that is a good band name.
Yeah, I just think, to create something new, you have to destroy something. I mean, it's inevitable reality. The laws of physics demand that, matter cannot be created or destroyed. And so it can be repurposed, but like any creation, any progress is at the cost of something else.
Mm-hmm.
So my problem is not saying I think we should like prop up these old, outdated, modalities of thinking, but we should be thinking about where we're going rather than just feeling like it's inevitable and being along for the ride. Like, we can and should, as a society, craft our path. We should choose the path we're taking and go in that direction, rather than just be like, well, all this stuff keeps happening to us.
Yeah.
Because it's a lie that the people in power, the people in government, the people that are, that are running these huge companies, the people that are in tech, it's a lie that they're telling us that it's inevitable. It's not inevitable that we create robots that are so lifelike that we start to have an existential crisis about what humanity is.
Yeah, it's
shit.
It's also like, it is a good thing to consider too, like that. Like, here's some things I liked that Andrew Yang talked about that had nothing to do with UBI, like that, like, the value of humanity and the value of markets doesn't tie in necessarily to GDP. Like, GDP is a really outdated measurement to measure and gauge how a society is doing.
Right.
It doesn't tell you like what the mental health of the country is. It doesn't tell you like what the well-being of children is. Like, it doesn't tell you like the well-being of families or marriages or anything like that. It's like there's things that I think all of us like would measure our local community by, to be like, hey, is this a place I want to live? Like that we're not measuring the country by. And I do think like the idea of maybe adapting our measurements from just like cold hard GDP for like, measuring our economy might be a smart idea. Whatever way you kind of come from it, like whether it's like, pure capitalism or not, like I do think adjusting our societal expectations from just like productivity and earning might be a good start, like, but I do think like that's a long path. And I don't personally, like I said at the top of this thing, I don't really trust any politician. I like Yang, but I wouldn't be shocked to find out he's probably not a great human being, because he's in politics. And even if maybe he was pure. It's like the longer he's at it, like he won't retain purity, you know, as a human. I don't think there's certain things, like I don't think you can get to being a billionaire without having some skeletons in your closet. Like I don't think you can become a millionaire without overlooking a couple things, like ethically. So it's, you know, to be a politician, I don't think you can be in politics for a long period of time without having some corruption. And some of it might be necessary corruption, like where it's like, oh, now I know how to navigate this and actually get things done. And, you know, like anything, like when you learn how to navigate protocols and get things done, sometimes that means not always behaving the best, you know?
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I would agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
Extend that to every human on the planet.
100%. Yeah.
So the difference is not whether or not they are corrupt, because we are all hypocritical and corrupt and blind to our faults to a certain extent.
Oh yeah.
But you know, there are those of us that are trying to do good, right? There are those of us that are just like, it is what it is. You know, and there's some good differentiation to kind of talk about there. But the real thing is, like, there's a lot of concentrated power in some of those people that no longer care about morality, because they're above it. They're above ethics. They're above the law. They're above whatever.
And that exists in any power structure, not just government, you know, which is where I never fully get on board with conservatives or like hardcore far leftists, because it's like, I don't have an innate trust of government. A good example is like, you know, to me, like, I actually like paying taxes as a citizen, because I feel like, you know, I think it's good there's Braille on stoplights and stuff, you know, there's things that I like my taxes going to. There's things I don't like my taxes going to. And that would be a whole different conversation. But the point being, I also know from the process of doing your taxes, the government's really efficient at cashing your payment check when you pay your taxes. Everything else about the system, it's really inefficient. And, you know, from even the tax code is like intentionally murky and confusing. And like, I actually would throw this out there. Like, if somebody's watching this and they're like a cartoonist or a graphic designer or working contract labor at all, hire a tax person, just as a tip, because it gets really confusing and murky. And if you try to figure it out yourself, you might end up paying, you know, thousands more than you'd have to otherwise.
I still don't get that. Like, that you have to hire other people to do your taxes, or do your taxes yourself. It's such like a foreign concept from God that has that all automated into the banks.
Yeah, see, I think that would be a sensible system. And you know, it depends on your scenario, because like if you're a person who's like working in-house somewhere and that's it, like if I were just going to my day job and that's my sole income, I wouldn't really worry about having a tax guy personally, because it's not that complicated. I'd probably file like however much I sent, like, you know, it was automated out of my check, and it's not a big deal. But it gets really confusing when you're a contract laborer in the US. But anyhow, the point being, it's just like, that's all governmental systems. Like, they're very, like, government systems are really inefficient and bad at doing things. Unfortunately, so are corporate systems too. And like, so that's like the part where I can't get on board with either, because I'm like, people in power just get corrupt, and it doesn't matter if that power is at like Monsanto, or if it's like at a global government, you know, or a local government, whatever it is. It's like the higher the power, like the more, and honestly, the more people involved, like the more there's screw ups, and then there's people who kick the can down the road, which to me is like the origin of like most conspiracy too.
One of my favorite concepts that I've been studying for one of my comics, which is about sort of like leadership, is this whole Peter principle. And there's got to be a lot of people nestled in the in the government that have sort of reached to the top solely through that function.
I can see that. To me, yeah, I don't know. I definitely think it's one of those scenarios of I also don't want to cast aside the idea that there are probably people who are trying to do good work, like Corey was saying at the top. I think it's important to remember they're people, and also like any time, like the more you step into leadership, you do start seeing things that on their face to like people you're leading, it's not always going to make sense what decisions you're making. What is that book?
This is the one we're doing tomorrow.
Oh, holy crap. I didn't realize it was like huge.
Yes. Let me turn my...
That's pretty exciting, man.
I got a stupid filter on. Hold on. I'll turn my filter off for a minute. There you go. So yeah, it is very big. I don't know how many pages. I don't know if they're numbered. Hold on.
1044.
What time is the show tomorrow?
9 p.m. Pacific.
Yes. And actually, so I was about to try to kind of tie us to a sort of ending here. I have finished my page. I hope you guys have gotten some stuff done. Corey, I hope you rocked some good relaxing time after a lot of crazy work on that animation you're working on.
Yeah, I did. And it's and I got through the book as well. So
that's exciting. That looks I was feeling worried about the Dave Baker one for the week after, and that makes me feel less bad because that's crazy.
Well, I'm not going through the whole thing, but
yeah. But I mean, focusing on characters is probably pretty smart because we're all pretty familiar with the storyline. Maybe just point out the difference, like some of the stuff that's a little different than the film, because I think most people are familiar with the film.
Well, like the film ends 75% of the way through the first book. Like there's still another whole adventure that they go through. And I think a lot of it is it got so weird that they couldn't, in the 30s, they couldn't figure out how to shoot it. Because there's like these creatures with these expandable flat top heads, and they try to go over the mountain, and they just like launch their heads at them so that they can't climb over them.
That sounds amazing.
So, anyway, I think the flying monkeys was like the technological bleeding edge of that time. But yeah,
I don't know about that. I've seen German expressionistic movies of a higher caliber when it comes to production.
That is true. I mean, yeah, like Metropolis, right? Like the stuff they were doing that it's kind of insane. A lot of films weren't able to pick that up. But I'm excited. It's funny too, because I was thinking about a recent thing they've never been able to adapt well, which is Douglas Adams. Anytime they try to make a film, it just never translates, and I don't know what that is that makes people.
They've done okay.
Did they?
I think so. I enjoyed the BBC version of it.
Oh, the radio drama is great.
No, I'm not talking about the radio drama. I'm talking about the BBC TV series. It was as on par with any Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
Fine. But the one that they wrote in the States, that was all right. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
Got to get Edgar Wright on it to do it.
Yes, that would be amazing, actually. You're right. If anybody could do it, he could do it. You're right. I guess it wasn't terrible, but
But I mean, you're taking something that almost shouldn't exist in another medium and saying, "Oh, they're not doing a good job with it." Well, it's like, how could you?
Yeah, but then I don't know. I feel like they did a pretty good job with Lord of the Rings, so I don't know.
Yeah, but that easily translates. It's a very narrative thing. It's not like introspective commentary of like an omniscient narrator
that's true.
Says stuff all the time.
And linguistic jokes that really require a narrator to land. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, so on that note, I'm not really sure how that's gonna that's gonna tie to an ending, but I do really
I like how
want to.
Josh is like, I'm trying to wrap this up, and I'm like, let's talk about linguistics.
I actually want to thank you guys for being on here. It was super fun. It's cool that we went down this kind of the discussion about cryptocurrency and like the state of algorithms and stuff like that. And it was just really fun to have Frank, you, and Jake and Corey show up and hang out, and it helped me get through my page too. So I hope you guys made good progress on your work. Jake, I hope you're close to finished with that crazy deadline. I'm guessing that means you still have some pages to go.
I got like 3.5 pages. More like close to like three. Yeah, three.
Okay.
3 3/4.
That's better than the 8 you had the last stream I did. So that's from your vantage point, you may feel like you're not making progress, but from the outside, you're getting there, sir.
I need that damn stamina. Anyway, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at JTwister. You will be probably finding me doing a YouTube channel, possibly in the near future.
Awesome. Sounds good. Corey, everybody can find you at Corey Kerr, and then also irsagency.com tomorrow at 9 Pacific, right? Anything else?
Nope.
Cool. And then Frank, everybody can find you at Frank Salazar Art, and then also at Tarako Creative. Did I get that right?
Tarako Creative Cast. We got a new night Monday night at 9 p.m. Central. So tomorrow night. And that's Set Aside Art Nation. You can find me there. And Anna Robb on just Anna Robb. You can find her stuff there, not my stuff.
Awesome. And then Chris, thanks for tuning in the chats. And also thanks Adam for hanging with us in the chats as well. So it was fun. It was a full house, and I appreciate you guys showing up. And we will see you guys probably. Actually, I'll see you guys on the IRS show. So irsagency.com. All right.